Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being at the Tuesday, July 14th, 2020 Montgomery County Council meeting. We're going to begin this morning with an interview from the county executive's appointment to the Housing Opportunities Commission, also known as HOC. His nominee is Jeffrey Merkowitz, and this has been rescheduled. So, Mr. Merkowitz, if someone can please let you in, and if you can take yourself off of mute, that would be helpful. Or you were there. I can see you. How are you, Mr. Merkowitz?
Very good. Thank you.
Good. First off, thank you for your flexibility. We we are in the strangest of times, so we appreciate your flexibility on this. I do have 9 predetermined questions. We're on a tight schedule, so I'm going to ask you to please keep your answers as succinct as you can. We would like to, by schedule, be through your interview within the half an hour. So
Sure.
Let me begin, please. Tell us about your professional background and how it relates to why you want to be a member of the Housing Opportunities Commission. And let me also say thank you very much for applying. I should have mentioned that in the very beginning. But anyhow, please tell us about your professional background and how it relates to why you want to be a member of the Housing Opportunities Commission.
Great. Well, let me in turn thank you and the council for taking the time to meet with me this morning, and also to the county executive for nominating me. I've had a lifelong interest in issues of housing and poverty in particular, homelessness in particular, and have made that a significant focus of my career. I am currently a senior advisor at the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund, or CDFI Fund, at the Department of Treasury, where our programs support financial institutions that are engaged in lending in low-income communities and to underserved populations, and providing financial products, including for affordable housing and affordable housing development. So I've been there. I was also when I was worked for Senator Barbara Boxer in the U.S. Senate, I was her lead housing advisor and helped formulate her response to the foreclosure crisis during the Great Recession, as well as to her response to the longstanding affordable housing crisis in California. So I've worked very closely on those issues, had spearheaded the efforts within the Senate that got the Federal Housing Finance Administration to start providing funds for the Housing Trust Fund and for the Capital Magnet Fund. I also used to work for a certified CDFI out in California, where among the products that we provided were affordable financing for affordable housing development. So I've been working on these issues for a long time, and I grew up in Maryland. I've lived in Montgomery County for 12 years, so I feel honored by the opportunity to apply my experience and my knowledge to the larger community in which I actually live, as opposed to just at a national level.
Thank you. What are some of the factors that you will take into consideration as you review and approve new affordable housing developments?
Well, I think the largest factor is making sure that we can get the most units at the deepest level of affordability that we're able to, and specifically in the areas of providing affordable units for extremely low income households. That's for those households that are earning below 30% of area mean income. And I think the National Low Income Housing Coalition has shown that there's a gap of around 30, there's only about 30 units available for every 100 households in this area at the extremely low income rate. I know that Montgomery County did a study a few years ago that showed that there was a gap of about 21,000 units for households earning that income level. So that would be a significant focus of mine. The other thing I think that would be a significant focus would be location and access to services. So, transit-oriented development is obviously very important in terms of providing access to jobs and services for residents. But I would also say that proximity to high-performing schools and other areas of opportunity, as researcher Raj Chetty has described, particularly for households or units that will be housing families. I'm a strong supporter of the boundary analysis that MCPS is doing, but I think that if we really want to desegregate our schools, we also need to make sure that we're doing our part to desegregate our neighborhoods.
Thank you. How can the county support the efforts of the HOC to create more housing for very low-income households in its development?
Sure. Well, I will admit that I am not yet fully familiar with all of the tools available to the HOC. But that said, I know that the council has been considering a housing production fund that has been proposed by the HOC. I think in addition to the initial investment in this fund, allowing the interest payments to be reinvested into the fund would also further enhance the ability of the HOC to finance units at affordable to very low incomes. I also think, if such a tool doesn't already exist, providing resources that would allow the HOC to take sort of a strategically opportunistic approach to purchasing properties and locations that would be good for affordable housing. So what I mean by that is, if the HOC is able to, sort of take a long-term approach and identify locations, properties that they think would be good for affordable housing, for placing affordable housing, and then if if properties in those areas become suddenly available, be able to respond very quickly and secure those locations for affordable housing. During the last economic crisis following 2008, a lot of investors, were able to purchase vacant properties, foreclosed properties, other properties that had lost significant value, and they were able to purchase them at discount rates and then, convert those into rental units. I think we're going to see a lot of the same behavior during this crisis. So it would be a great opportunity for the HOC, to compete with some of those investors by securing some of those properties and then converting them to affordable housing when possible.
Thank you. As a commissioner, how would you review staffing and other resources in certain areas, for example, customer service and building management, particularly in buildings that house seniors and special populations?
Yeah. So I think for me, I would want to make sure that we are hearing from the voices of the residents who are affected by those services. So at the CDFI fund and for CDFIs in general, one of the main principles is accountability. And for CDFIs, what that means is that there's representation on their boards or in the room that makes sure that the financial products and financial services that the CDFIs are providing actually meet the needs of the populations that they're serving. So I think the same principle applies in this case, that we want to make sure that we're hearing from those voices and that we're making sure that the services that they need are actually being provided. And for me in particular, I think that would be especially useful so that I'm not just having to guess or take somebody else's word for it.
Thank you. Before the recent health crisis, what did you see as the most important housing issues? What changes can we make based on the lessons learned from the current health crisis?
Well, I think before the crisis, for me, the lack of available affordable housing was the number one concern. And, honestly, I'm not sure that's really changed that much. I think, in fact, it's probably going to get worse, given the number of people who are at risk of losing their homes, the number of people who have lost income. So, that's going to remain a very large concern. From a health perspective, however, I think what the health crisis has done is it's underscored the need not just for secure housing, but also for healthy housing. And there are a number of historical reasons why people of color have been more vulnerable to this virus. But among them are the fact that they are often living in homes that, are not healthy. They've got underlying conditions, and those are being exacerbated by their living situations. So I think, what this crisis is doing is pointing out the importance of, making sure that healthy housing is a priority, not just a luxury.
Thank you. The county has passed a law on racial equity and social justice. What measures would you take to advance racial equity and social justice at HOC and countywide?
Well, I'm going to go back to a couple of things I've already said or referred to, particularly, the location of affordable housing, of the units that HOC develops, purchases, manages, and making sure that those are in areas of opportunity and that they are contributing to the desegregation of our county. I would also, again, go back to my previous answer on healthy housing and making sure that, particularly for people of color and those experiencing underlying conditions, that we are prioritizing healthy housing for those populations.
Thank you. What do you think HOC can be improved? How do you think HOC can be improved or made more efficient?
So I'm going to have to defer on this question. I don't feel like I'm familiar enough yet with the inner workings of HOC, so I don't feel quite qualified yet to answer that question, and I don't think it would be really fair of me to make certain presumptions from the outside at this point.
Okay, thank you. Will you be able to make the time commitment that the commission requires?
That's certainly my intention. As I have described in previous interviews, I have also volunteered previously as the PTSA president at my elementary school, at my daughter's elementary school and middle school. That is a commitment that can certainly take up a large chunk of time. I'm not doing that at the moment, so it has freed me up significantly. There's always things that can take up our time, but I do intend on making this a priority.
Thank you. And do you have any conflicts of interest of which the council should be aware?
No.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councilmember Reamer, did you have any questions?
I just wanted to, first of all, thank Mr. Markowitz for applying. Terrific resume, but even a more impressive interview. I think you said so many things that I was hoping to hear, and I really want to compliment you on your preparation, and you're a terrific fit for this important job. And I want to compliment the county executive for nominating you. Really appreciate that. You've answered the questions. I think you're a terrific nominee, and I'm going to enthusiastically support you. One issue I just wanted to kind of get your reaction to, as you know, I can tell from your comments, housing authorities are often the subject of a lot of political attack. in their communities, and they're doing a good job when they're making tough decisions to put housing where it's really needed. And as a result, they often face, pushback and attempts to undermine them. And our commission members, as board members, are, they're important to help try to soothe some of those issues, whether in the community or with other elected officials. So I just wanted to ask or share with you, I think as part of your responsibility, we're probably going to need you to occasionally reach out to elected officials from the county and talk to them about the work of the commission. You described the production fund that we are initiating, which has the potential to create thousands of units of housing in the county and take a program that HOC has piloted and take it to scale. I think it's going to be one of the most significant of several very significant housing initiatives, that we'll bring online, at this time. We're trying to do this at the same time as HOC is facing constant efforts to undermine its authority, to make it become subject to impractical rules and requirements, a lot of them in the state legislature. So I wanted to make you aware, if you don't already know, you're walking into a fray, and that's part of why we need you, is to help kind of smooth some of the way for our housing mission.
Well, I appreciate that. Having worked both in the U.S. Senate and, I will say, as a PTSA president, I'm used to walking into combative situations at times, and having to work with people who have differing views, and to establish a good relationship and still, with the goal of progress. So, but I appreciate the forewarning.
And please work with us, right?
Absolutely.
Well, HOC is the county's agency. They are our partner. They are kind of the first among our partners for affordable housing, and we need to strengthen that partnership always. And so part of how that partnership gets strengthened is through good communication and strong relationships with your council members and your executive branch. So we'll be looking to you for that.
I absolutely agree. And if I didn't say it at the beginning, I meant to, as a constituent, I wanted to thank the council for the attention it has been showing to the needs of affordable housing in this county. It's been a problem for a long time, and so I have really appreciated, watching the efforts that the council is taking, and would enjoy being a partner in those efforts.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Merkowitz. Thank you for applying. And just generally speaking, as you know, this council adopted the Council of Governments updated housing targets for the region for us, Montgomery County. Our target is 41,000 units in the next 10 years. And of course, as you know, those are to be in activity centers, but also the issue of affordability is a very important one. So as I listened to your responses, I couldn't help but think about how in Montgomery County we have such unique circumstances that we may not have in other jurisdictions. Of course, land availability is very, very limited. Affordability is obviously a very big issue because the cost of living here is so high. Every time we have a master plan, we're kind of scrambling to see what are those opportunities in terms of, affordability of housing and sites that maybe we can take advantage of, et cetera, public-owned land and things like that. So given a lot of those restrictions, can you just share some, possible best practices that you have seen around the country that perhaps we can all take advantage of as we seek to at least get very close and hopefully meet or exceed that very important goal that we have all adopted?
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to, one thing I said in the interview was about being opportunistic. And I think, having the tools available to respond quickly to opportunity, to think long-term strategically about, where, we want to locate properties, what kinds of properties we're looking for, and then, keeping a watchful eye on the market, and especially in times of downturn. I mean, there's a tension, obviously, because, the county is bringing in lower revenues, but it's also the time where there's opportunity to, take advantage of a low market and secure properties that might otherwise be out of reach for the HOC or for the county. So, and there are tools I have seen around the country for groups, organizations that are taking advantage of circumstances like that, taking an opportunistic approach, and even just being able to hold on to a property until they're ready to develop it. So that's one thing. I think the partnerships. I know I believe HOC and the county have partnered with CDFIs. There's some very strong CDFIs, national CDFIs in this region. Enterprise, LISC, so working with CDFIs and taking advantage of their ingenuity and innovation to do private-public partnerships, that can both bring in more properties, and lower the costs and increase affordability. So those are a couple of thoughts. There's a lot of different models out there, and one of the nice things about my day job is I exposed to a lot of these things. So would hope to be bringing a lot of those ideas back as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I also did appreciate your comment regarding the housing, how housing plays such a pivotal role when it comes to desegregating our schools. No easy task in this county, but we're all trying really hard to work on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other questions from my colleagues. Mr. Merkowitz, you were most impressive. You came in under budget, which is always impressive in anything in government. So we thank you very much. Again, thank you for applying. Our agenda is suggesting that this will be. I have it here somewhere. That this will be tentatively voted on, scheduled for 7/21 for next Tuesday. So thank you very much. You'll be hearing from us shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is general business. And Madam Clerk, and I know the answer to this actually, but do you have any announcements, changes to the agenda, which is going to take you longer than usual, or petitions?
Yes, good morning, Council President and Council members. So on the consent calendar, we have a correction for 3A, introduction, resolution to support the renaming of the Washington Redskins. Lead sponsor, County Council. Action is scheduled for 7/21/20. The third is item number 3F, action, special appropriation to the county government's FY21 operating budget, Department of Health and Human Services, $592,202 for mobile crisis response, source of funds, general fund reserves. Public Safety, Health and Human Services Joint Committee recommends approval with amendments. 3K, introduction, resolution to place an amendment to Section 305 of the County Charter on the 2020 general election ballot. Lead sponsors are Council Members Friedson, Katz, and Navarro. Co-sponsors, Council Members Albernaz, Rice, and Reamer. Public hearing is scheduled for July 21st, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Added, 3N, introduction, resolution to urge the Maryland state lawmakers to change Maryland, My Maryland as the state song and urge against the song from being played at official Montgomery County events. Lead sponsor is the County Council. Public hearing is scheduled for July 21st, 2020 at 1:30. Added, 3O, introduction, supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY21 operating budget, Office of the County Executive, $550,000 to support a police audit, fire and rescue service audit, and consulting funds for community engagement support. Source of funds, general fund, undesignated reserves. Lead sponsor, county president, at the request of the county executive. Public hearing is scheduled for 7/21/2020 at 1:30 p.m. Added, 3P, introduction, supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY21 operating budget, Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, $260,961 for staffing and operating expenses. Source of funds, general fund, undesignated reserves. Lead sponsor, council president at the request of the county executive. Public hearing action is scheduled for 7/28/2020 at 1:30 p.m. Added, 3Q, introduction, special appropriation to the county government's FY21 operating budget, COVID-19, Human Services and Community Assistance, NDA, $2,025,000 for short-term assistance to distressed, affordable common ownership communities. Source of funds, federal grant. Lead sponsor, county council. Public hearing is scheduled for 7/21/20 at 1:30 p.m. Added, 3R, introduction, special appropriation to the county government's FY21 operating budget, Department of Health and Human Services, $355,000 for permanent supportive housing for veterans and unsheltered adults. Source of funds, federal grant, $118,335, and general fund reserves, $236,665. Lead sponsor, Health and Human Services Committee. Public hearing action is scheduled for 7/28/2020 at 1:30 p.m. Added, 3S, introduction, county executive recommended FY21 savings plan, amendments to the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission's FY21 to 26 capital improvements program. Public hearing action is scheduled for 9/15/20. Added, 3T, introduction, resolution to adopt a proposed amendment to the county charter, property tax limit on taxable value of owner-occupied residential property, limit on tax rate increases. Lead sponsor, council president at the request of the county executive. Public hearing will be scheduled at a future date. Added, 5B, council sitting as Board of Health, introduction, resolution to adopt Board of Health regulation requiring enhanced testing strategy for COVID-19. Lead sponsor is the County Council. Public hearing action is scheduled for 7/21/2020 at 1:30 p.m. And the Council has not received any petitions. That is all, Council President.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for keeping all of these this juggling act for what we're doing in line. We have received the minutes have been distributed for April 23rd and April 28th, 2020. They will be approved as received unless there's any corrections. Okay. The next item is the consent. I need a motion. Will someone please make a motion? It's been moved by Councilmember Reamer, seconded by Council Vice President Hucker, to approve our consent calendar. I have a feeling we're going to have a little bit of discussion on some of these items. There's so many. But I did want to begin by saying that I literally just received a statement from the county executive who said, I want to thank the county council for introducing, he's talking about the resolution on the resolution A, 3A, on the renaming of the Washington football team. I want to thank the County Council for introducing this resolution, and I want to thank Rebrand Washington for their efforts to have this resolution introduced. My staff, I'm speaking on behalf of the County Executive, my staff worked with them to develop language that acknowledges the clear and important reasons to change the name of our football team. I am pleased that the team's owner understands the need to take this action, and I look forward to a new name that we can all celebrate. I too want to speak to that as well. Someone last night called and told me that just the thought that Montgomery County was going to have this as a resolution was the thing that changed the name of the skins. Kiddingly, they told me that. I do appreciate, and I think that obviously as a football fan in Washington for many, many years, I believe the timing is right. I believe it should have been done before, but I certainly believe that rather than look at the history of when it should be done, I believe we should be appreciative of the fact that it is going to be done. And so I too agree with the resolution. I also wanted to mention for on the consent calendar for item F, the special appropriation for the mobile crisis response, that has been deferred. It has not been forgotten. It will be back on for July 21st, and there was some issues trying to get it on the agenda. So it will be coming back next week because it's extremely important, and we did not want it to be anyone to think that it's anything other than that. And I did want to also mention for item Q, the special appropriations for the $2,025,000 for the short-term assistance to distressed affordable common ownership communities. I want to thank my colleagues once again for supporting it. The older common ownership communities, particularly condominium communities, are a source of housing and are often the way for households with low and moderate incomes to become first-time. Just as the impact of COVID-19 has made it difficult for many renters to stay current, households have been unable to pay all or part of their monthly association fees. If the loss of revenue to the association impacts its ability to pay common utility bills and other essential costs, the housing of the entire community will be in danger from utility cutoffs or code enforcement violations. And the special appropriation will promote housing stability and prevent the loss of housing in these communities. And with that, I'm going to ask Councilmember Rice to please.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. And so I do want to start off on our consent calendar with item A. You know, it's interesting. This has been a conversation for a very, very, very long time. And I want to channel the spirit of the late, great Jim Vance. Back in 2013, said something that I think is very profound. You know, he said, do we really want to be the only team in the league with even a question about the appropriateness of our name? And then he went on to talk about what the name really means and how it affects people in our community. He said, back in the day, if you really wanted to insult a black man, attack a Jew, an Irishman, and probably start a fight, you threw out certain words. You know what they are. They were, and they are, pejoratives of the first order, the worst order, specifically intended to injure. In my view, Redskin was and is in that same category. He summarized by saying, the name sucks, and we need to get rid of it. So I'm happy to see that we, in this Washington metropolitan region, have gotten to a place where this is okay. The reality is it took far too long and says a lot about our community. It says a lot about how folks truly feel. It says a lot about the reason why we need to continue to press and say that racism still is a challenge in our communities. Because for far too long, people have thought that this derogative term was something that was still okay to emblazon on shirts and paraphernalia, to say, to shout, to chant, to sing in song. As we have a resolution talking about Maryland, my Maryland. The same thing applies to the song for the Washington football team. I mean, this is something where, again, yes, we're happy that they are finally changing the name after pressure from sponsors and big-time names that were about to pull out that would have injured the franchise when it comes to monetary repercussions. That's the reason why the name was changed, not because people actually felt it was the right thing to do. So, while we celebrate the fact that the name has been changed, we also need to be real about the continued challenges that we face in our community when it comes to racism, when it comes to acceptance, when it comes to social justice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Vice President Hucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, as usual, agree with my colleague from the North and everything he had to say. I want to echo the comments about the Washington football team, and in the same spirit, I want to thank all my colleagues for their efforts to change the state song, and particularly thank Speaker Jones for her efforts in getting behind this. Our song's been a hurtful embarrassment that isn't reflective of the state's values for a very long time. It celebrates the Confederacy. This is only the latest of many efforts of Speaker Jones to make some overdue changes in Maryland that are more reflective of our state's capital, state's values, including removing a plaque honoring the Confederacy in the State House. This is really long overdue. Over 15 years ago, I was working with the late great Senator Gwendolyn Britt, a pioneer civil rights activist who, in our own county, helped to desegregate the Glen Echo Park. And there have been many unsuccessful attempts to pass legislation through Annapolis to change the song since then. Now with Speaker Jones's support, I really believe this is going to be the year to change it. I also want to mention my support for item 3R for supportive housing for veterans and unsheltered adults. Housing insecurity, you all know, is a very serious challenge that many are having, particularly now with COVID-19. And as the special appropriation states, we're all committed to making homelessness rare and brief and one time only. I'm grateful for the leadership of Councilmember Glass as our lead on this issue. And the special appropriation is really important to help us achieve that mission. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. There is a lot on this agenda, a lot that we just heard, so thank you to the clerk for sorting through it. I'm not going to comment on all of it, though I support it. I just wanted to note one very important item, item K, that is on it. On the ballot this fall, county taxpayers are going to face a key choice on the future of our county. I want to thank my colleagues on the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, Council President Katz and Chair Navarro, for co-leading this effort, and to Council Members Albertos, Rice, and Reamer for co-sponsoring it. If approved, our proposal will maintain existing protections for taxpayers by requiring all 9 council members to support a tax increase in Montgomery County. But rather than a complex and confusing calculation each year based on arbitrary exceptions that shift the tax burden from one group of taxpayers to another, this policy replaces that complex calculation with a clear, consistent, transparent tax rate that every taxpayer will know and every taxpayer will understand. Nobody will be able to question it or argue it. It establishes a tax policy that reflects how tax rates are actually understood in reality, based on the existing rate from the previous year. It appropriately places the cap on tax increases on rates paid by county taxpayers, not on county revenues, which inevitably cripples our ability to build and maintain schools and transportation and to provide critical public services. Just as importantly, if passed by the voters, it would align county revenue with economic growth so we can actually sufficiently grow the tax base without growing tax rates. Make no mistake, the charter limit isn't designed to limit tax increases. It's specifically designed to discourage growth. That's bad for residents, and it's bad for businesses. It's neither economically sound nor fiscally sustainable. This question before the voters this fall is going to be about fiscal responsibility versus fiscal insanity. It's about creating a consistent and transparent tax code and tax policy, and it's about aligning a tax policy with our economic growth so we can provide the school and transportation infrastructure and so we can continue investing in that growth. This is one of the most important elections, not just for our country, as we all have talked about and discussed, but also for our county. What type of county we want to be, what type of focus we want to have, that in many ways starts with our tax policy. And we need to make the right choice. I am very hopeful and appreciative for the collaborative efforts of this council, and look forward to working with stakeholders, working with you to get this on the ballot and to work hard to get it passed by the voters to make the case that our county deserves a tax policy that is transparent, that is consistent, and that is understood by everybody and that is fair for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Yes, there's so much on the agenda. I'm so glad we are taking the stand to oppose the name for the Washington football team. It's a disgrace. It has been for decades. And I think changing the name is going to allow a lot more people in the region to feel good about a local sports team and potentially even get interested in following that team instead of feeling insulted and embarrassed every time they think of that team. And that certainly is the way I felt for a long time. So I'm glad we're taking this action to support changing the name. On the state song, these two things are obviously related. But after the Civil War, you would think that the country would have proceeded to build upon what the war in large part was fought for, which was abolition and freedom. Certainly wasn't the only cause of the war, but it was a substantial cause for many people. And instead, in the decades afterwards in Maryland, really the Confederacy won the kind of, a fight for the hearts and minds of the people of the state. And the state song really reflects that. There was a hard turn against what the war had been fought for, and there was a very deliberate government devised strategy to uphold the kind of racial caste system that had previously existed. It's written into law after law. It was the official policy of the state and the counties in many different ways, even into the lifetimes of people on this county council. As Sidney Katz has often described, when he was a child, he went to school in a segregated environment. Of course, today, you can't take away 400 years of history overnight. It's going to take a long time to fix those problems, but they're still very vivid around us. And this song is just a badge of that shame and of that intent. And so removing it at least says we have a different intent. We'd like to build a different state and a different community. And we're not going to stand for any more, trying to pretend that these kinds of things mean something different from what we know they really mean. Having street signs named for, white supremacist generals who attacked America and invaded Montgomery County and even shot at the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, from, Montgomery County soil. We don't celebrate that person. That's Jubal Early. We don't celebrate the Confederacy. That's an outrageous and crazy thing. But unfortunately, that has been this country and this state's history since the beginning. So, lots to do to change those symbols, to take down those symbols, and symbols matter. Of course, policy matters too. So we've got to do everything together. But I'm glad we're calling on the state to fix this, and hopefully they will address this. And I think we'll all agree that dealing with the symbols is not, it's just, it's an important thing to do, but we've got to do a lot more than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I used to have this quote in my office that said that being an irrational optimist, and I often think about that because there's no doubt that it has been so important to work on so many of these issues, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, and having the patience. And it's just extraordinary. It completely blows my mind that we are now addressing so many of these issues that we have tried to do in the past. And I welcome that. It's such an exciting time to do this. So I do really appreciate my colleagues, as well as the region and the country that has pushed so hard to address the name of our Washington football team, to address the song, Maryland song. And there are many other things that we will work on, as we have also addressed many things before this particular time, such as pushing for renaming certain, schools. And now the Board of Education do such an amazing job at doing a comprehensive review. It is so true that symbols matter. So, we can, as adults, talk about all of these issues of equity and justice, and then our children have this complete, kind of disconnect when they see and they celebrate, these teams, and they see these names, etc. There is such a weird disconnect there that it's important for us to address. So I really thank my colleagues for all of this work. It's a joy to be doing this. On item K, as Councilmember Friedson indicated, and I want to thank him for leading the work on this particular proposal. I've always said that for me, working on economic development, it's really critical, because then it allows us to create the revenue necessary to address the most vulnerable among us. And so this notion of making sure that we put forth a tax policy approach that actually forces us to make sure that we're working really hard on economic development, on providing opportunities for everyone, access to jobs, creating jobs, especially in those areas of the county where we have long sought to do so. That to me is really important. We should not be tying our hands right now in this thicker amendment. It's really problematic for the opportunity for us to raise the revenue necessary to make sure that we maintain our quality of life. I think that this particular proposal, what it does is that it clarifies, it makes things a lot more straightforward, but it puts the onus and incentivizes us to work very hard to, again, bring those jobs, to expand our revenues from that perspective. And that, I think, it's really, really important. Also, I want to note that item P, the county executive has sent over a request for to add some funds for the Racial Equity and Social Justice Office, and that's also, I think, important. We had a GO session briefing on this, and we were very clear that we were concerned about the capacity of this office to take on such extraordinary challenge and task that is so important. And so I do appreciate that they have sent over a request recognizing that they need to strengthen their capacity. So many other things on this consent calendar. I really, again, appreciate working with my colleagues on so many of these issues. And I look forward to the sessions on a lot of these items. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Auburn Knox.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I am a lifelong fan of our Washington football team. Attended all 3 parades as a kid. And my mom reminded me the other day, my go-to outfit in 2nd grade was a worn out number 44 jersey that I wore almost every day. And for a long time incorporated the number 44, but no longer do, into my passwords. And so I really understand and respect some of the members in our community that on some level feel like this is a loss or just political correctness run amok. It is not. I have not purchased merchandise in years. I cannot look at my kids with a straight face and encourage them to support a team that so clearly represents racist and past views that we must turn the page on. And so this change, as we learned in an article in the Washington Post, has really been in the works for about 30 years. And this time has felt so different. And the fact that corporate America is stepping forward and recognizing that difference is very significant and very profound. And although the team, it seems, reluctantly move forward with this change, it's clear that our community and our business community is doing their best to meet this moment. And so I appreciate this change, long overdue. And to Councilmember Reamer's point, I think actually is going to be a positive thing for this team. I think it's going to bring people back and generate a level of excitement that is appropriate for the team that represents our nation's capital. And so I think this is a momentous occasion, an important one. And along those same lines, the changing of our state anthem clearly is also overdue. And as Councilmember Navarro stated, as we look at other names and other issues, we're all looking at them through a different lens. And it is long overdue and represents progress that is so important and so long overdue. And then finally, Mr. President, I did want to comment on item number K. And I think it's symbolically important that the three members of our Government Operations Committee are co-introducing this particular piece of legislation. Because we know that the tax structure has been complicated. And we also know that Montgomery County has been among, if not the most, among the most fiscally responsible counties in our entire country, with the recognition of our AAA bond rating. We take the precious resources from our county residents very seriously. And I think we are diligent in making sure that we spend as many of those dollars as wisely and efficiently as we can. But I think this particular charter amendment represents a very positive paradigm shift, because it not only uncomplicates our tax structure, but provides an incentive for us to bet on ourselves. And as our economy grows and as we grow as a community, it will provide us with additional revenue and additional leverage to be able to handle social safety net issues, the support of our school system, and so many of those critically important budget line items that we need to continue to move Montgomery County forward on so many ways. So I commend our GO committee, and I in particular want to thank Councilmember Friedson, who I know worked actively on this and conducted a lot of research and has had many conversations with a number of key stakeholders. I look forward to the ongoing discussion as we discuss this within committee, but I think this is an important step forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, and I also should mention that I'm very glad to be a lead sponsor on item K, and I sincerely thank Councilmember Friedson for all of his hard work. And I also want to mention that I too remember John Reagan's number 44 from an era of a few years ago. So next is Councilmember Glass, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, definitely there's a lot in today's consent calendar, so I too will limit my remarks. First is item Q that you, Mr. President, have put forward, introduction of a special appropriation for the common ownership communities. And this is really important because we know that many common ownership communities are homes to residents who were hit really hard during the Great Recession, resulting in delinquent payments and fees, which made it extremely hard for those communities to maintain their most basic facilities and amenities. And so this is really timely, and I think it's a strategic step to provide support on the front end to these housing communities before the current economic situation gets worse. So thank you for your leadership on that. I'd also like to talk about item R, the introduction of a special appropriation to provide additional permanent supportive housing for veterans and unsheltered adults. For nearly a year, I've been working with Bethesda Cares, one of our incredible nonprofit organizations that provide services to end and prevent homelessness, and they had come up with an innovative proposal that will allow homeless veterans and others to access an apartment so that they can call it a home. And we know that too many barriers exist for individuals who are trying to rent an apartment, such as a bad credit score. And this creative approach that Bethesda Cares has put forward will allow them to be the master leasee, which means that Bethesda Cares is actually taking on the legal burden and responsibility for providing housing for its clients. And what makes this proposal even better is that private philanthropists have contributed nearly $160,000 to match the county's contribution of approximately $355,000. So that's really good there. And this type of smart partnership and investment is really what we need. We've been seeing it in other areas during this pandemic, with public dollars being matched by private philanthropy to help our most vulnerable. So I just really want to thank Bethesda Cares, the leadership, the board, and the staff for providing such a thoughtful and creative solution to help end and prevent homelessness here in Montgomery County. And then finally, I'd like to comment on item N, a resolution to urge Maryland state lawmakers to change Maryland, My Maryland as the state song, and to urge against the song from being played at official Montgomery County events. We know that our nation has been dramatically shaped by decades and centuries of systemic racism, from laws to statues, from names of sports teams, and to official state songs all across the country. We're having these really important conversations and taking decisive actions to promote the best qualities in our society. And here in Montgomery County and across Maryland, we know that the day of reckoning is before us. And the state song, Maryland, My Maryland, was known to many as a Confederate battle hymn, written by James Randall Ryder, a Baltimore resident, in response to the 1861 Pratt Street riots. Maryland, My Maryland was Ryder's response to a situation he did not like: the Union troops confronting Confederate sympathizers. And our state song portrayed Union troops as, quote, Northern scum, and it also referred to President Abraham Lincoln as a tyrant. So our state song was used as a symbol to support an institution that enslaved people, robbing them of their freedom and self-determination. And so we know, all of us, that we have a Maryland that we love, one that is inclusive. And the Maryland that I know is welcoming to everybody. And that Maryland, I know, celebrates the beautiful diversity of all 6 million residents. And so change is good, change is positive, and by transmitting this resolution to the General Assembly, we're signaling our desire for a new state song, one that allows us to sing from our heart without hesitation or reservation. And so I'm proud to have worked with my colleagues on this matter, and I know that under House Speaker Adrienne Jones's leadership in Annapolis, I'm confident that she and her colleagues in the General Assembly will swiftly replace this state song. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I did think it needs to be mentioned that Jenny Forehand, the former senator from District 17, truly led the fight on the state song for years. So hopefully this will happen, and hopefully we can contact Senator Forehand to let her know that though it didn't happen while she was in the Senate, it certainly is happening. And with that, Councilmember Jawando, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad you mentioned that about Senator Forehand. And obviously, I think to Councilmember Navarro's point earlier, people have been fighting to change these things for a long time. And, in 2018, Senator Cheryl Kagan passed a bill in the Senate saying that we needed to change the name. And that was the first time that had happened. And so it really builds on the backs, and we all stand on the shoulders of many, many people before us who have been fighting these fights. And so I wanted to make sure that both those senators got their credit, along with the Speaker, Adrienne Jones, and we're going to get this across the finish line. And I'm glad Councilmember Glass talked about some of the horrible parts of that song, including calling Abraham Lincoln a despot. I think if you ask the average Marylander, Jay Leno used to have this thing where you just ask people basic questions on the street, which I love that segment. I hope someone else, some people do versions of it. But if you ask the average Marylander, how many Marylanders fought in the Confederacy, in the Confederate Army? I think you would get very low numbers. But if you know your history of Maryland, that it was about even, that the people who fought in the Confederacy and fought for the Union, and that we were barely in the Union. It was a bit of controversy in the state legislature when the vote was taken, and they actually had to. I read one account, they had to drag 3 delegates back in to and cajole them to vote to be in the union. And so we have a history here. I often say Maryland's the state Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman ran away from. This is a state that is below the Mason-Dixon line, and its history is here in Montgomery County and here across the state is one that is fully in line with the rest of the United States as far as the dehumanization and system of chattel slavery and all that comes along with that, the discrimination and the unequal justice. And so these things are important to change, and I'm really glad we're taking this step. And I'm glad we're taking the step with the team. I agree with Councilmember Albanaz, a lifelong Skins fan. You know, it's funny, at some point, I can't remember the year, but I just started calling them the Skins because I just was uncomfortable. I felt bad about it even as a child. You know, I think teenagers using the name. And I'm so glad that it's going to be changed. And it will invigorate the fan base. And I also want to say that one thing that's, I think, very important at the time, these two things represent that change is happening, but change is also hard. I want to acknowledge that we are wired to be resistant to change. You know, that's like the way we're made, you know, and some of these changes also, to some, while they're hard and significant for some, these name changes, these street names, all the Confederate monuments that we're doing to write these the correct history and to interpret our past correctly, which is very important so that we can chart a path forward in the future. While that's hard, there are some also who feel that it's cosmetic and that it's not addressing core issues. And I think it's important to speak to both of those emotions because they're valid. They're both valid. Change is hard, but I rest assured, this council member and I know my colleagues, that while we're taking these steps to change names and to support these efforts, and it's a good thing that corporate America is doing it, and people are reversing their statements. You know, in the case of the Washington football team, just a year ago, we heard this was never going to happen, and now it's happening. And I'm a supporter of Red Tails, by the way. I'm just going to put that out there, you know, and I want Colonel McGee to announce it, Montgomery County resident, former member of Tuskegee Airmen. But whatever the name is, that there we go. And Councilmember Friesen has the shoes, the red tail shoes that he just put up. There we go. There you go. I think that we also must remember, and it's incumbent upon us and as policymakers, but also the society, that while these are good steps, they are not addressing the root of the issue. And we must not allow the human complacency that is in all of us, in the resistance to change, that can say, okay, we changed the name, check. That'll give us a year or two, and we don't have to do anything related to race for a while. We're not going to do that. This is something that is just the beginning of the correction and the retelling of history in the right way. But remember, we're doing that not just because we should do it. We're doing it because you must understand it if you're to understand where we are right now, and that we must make changes in policy, in budget allocation, in legislation that underscores why these names and things were done the way they were. And there's a connection, and I don't want people to lose that or become fatigued or not think it's enough or think we don't understand that. So that whole spectrum, wherever you are, it's hard to change, you think it's not enough, or anywhere in between, this is an important part of the process, the truth and reconciliation that has never happened in this country, to tell our true history so that we can make changes that for the benefit of all residents in our county, our state, and our nation. And I just felt like it was important to say that today because I know I felt that way and others have felt that way. So I'm really excited about this agenda and this consent calendar. We're committed to the work for the long haul. The last thing I wanted to say was the item related to mental health. And I thank Councilmembers Albanaz and Rice for leading that effort. Many of us have said in our schools, this is a crisis in the country, but it's certainly a crisis in our schools. And this money will help expand a very innovative pilot program so that more students can have access to the additional mental health services they need. There's much more we need to do in this area. And with one of the worst nurse to counselor and nurse to student and counselor to student ratios in the region, we have to do more. And we know our students in this time significantly. My daughter broke down in tears on his summer school Zoom because she was with kids she didn't know and just wasn't prepared to handle it. And that's just one of many, many, many things that our kids are struggling with right now. And we're going to have a much more significant response as kids try to re-enter school and their families. So I think this is a great program, but realize it's going to go from 270 to 540, and we have 170,000 students. And so there's a lot more we're going to need to do in that regard. So I thank my colleagues and look forward to the continued discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And with that, we have no other speakers, but we do have a motion from Councilmember Reamer and a second from Vice President Hucker to approve our consent calendar. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. We are now on item 4, which is a discussion on the FY21 revenues. And I believe Gene Smith will be, I see him on the screen. I believe Gene Smith will be explaining that to us, please.
Certainly, thank you, and good morning. And I'm also joined by our colleagues from the Department of Finance and the Office of Management and Budget today, who did most of the work on this and updating the revenues for the county, I should say the tax revenues for fiscal 21. So I'll only spend a couple of minutes, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Covio to go through their analysis and understanding of where the fiscal 21 tax revenues are at. So for the council, just as a reminder, when the executive transmitted the budget in March, the world was very different, and our assumptions and understandings were very different. And the council took action to do a continuity of services budget on the expenditure side during fiscal 21. At that time, we didn't have a lot of information related to the fiscal 21 tax revenues, but we do now. We have more, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Staff will quickly just point out that we're only talking about tax revenues today. We're not going to be looking at state aid, federal aid, or even the expenditure side. The council is going through a proposed savings plan that the executive transmitted in early July that addresses some expenditure side issues, but again, today is just tax revenues, again, which is just one part of the calculation or one part of the ledger. So real quickly, I'll just go down a couple of the high level numbers. Finance estimates that our fiscal 20 tax revenues are going to be revised down by about $48 million, primarily due to the income tax changes and collections. And then for fiscal 21, the current write-down is at $191.95 million. And so I provide some historical context. During the Great Recession in 2007, the fiscal 10 and fiscal 11, so almost 3 years after the Great Recession, the county wrote down $188.2 million in actual revenues. It's a little apples to oranges comparison, but when it comes to comparing actual revenues, I think that's the best. We're looking at estimates today, but the county's actual revenues went down by almost $200 million due to the Great Recession, and we're looking at a similar write-down in our first revision. And so with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Covio, and his team will go through their presentation, and then the council can ask questions as they need to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I was asked to be brief. We're going to be brief, and you can ask as many questions as you like when we're done. I'm not going to go through the whole presentation. I'm sure you've all read it already. I did want to start by saying thank you to OMB, especially Rich Madalino and Chris Mullen, and also council staff, Marlene Michelson and Craig Howard and Gene Smith, for working collaboratively with us. Our team is Rob Hagedorn, the division chief for fiscal management, Dennis Hetman, and David Platt, who's our chief economist. And they have done yeoman's work just actually reading all of the information that has come out over the last several months and trying to tease out exactly what's going on. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future, obviously. When we talked about this a couple months ago, Mr. Smith brought you some numbers. These numbers actually fall within that range. And at the time we were looking at so-called V-shaped and L-shaped recoveries, where we had a deep short-term recession or we had a deep long-term recession. Now we're looking at a swoosh-shaped recession, which is sort of splitting the difference between the two. And I did want to thank Rob Hagedorn especially. I don't know if you all know this, but Rob's going to retire at the end of this month. So these will be the last official revenue estimates that he has done for about a quarter of a century, actually. Not to make any of us feel old or anything, but Rob has been fantastic to work with over the years, and I'm sorry that he's getting ready to retire in a couple weeks. So we evaluate, and we have been evaluating revenues over the last several months. There's not been obviously a lot of information on what's happening with the world because we've only been in this for a few months now. It feels like forever, but it's only been a few months. But we're very closely watching revenues. We're very closely watching other things too, along with OMB and council staff. What's the state going to do and everything? But these revenue estimates have nothing to do with what the state of Maryland might decide to do later on in the year or early next year. Again, we're looking at sort of splitting the difference between a V and an L-shaped recovery. It's starting deep. It's going to tail off into the future on a somewhat better slope than an L-shaped and a somewhat lesser slope than a V-shaped recovery. I would note that we accrue revenues through the end of July. So we're still counting revenues, and we will not actually have any closeout data until late September, any good closeout data anyway, until late September after you get back from your August recess, as we're getting the CAFR put together and everything. I would say that the main issue, of course, is income tax revenues. We all expected that. November will be probably the most important distribution of the year. It will tell us whether we're on track or not on track for this particular revenue estimate. In late September into the middle of October, we'll have collected the first payment for property taxes, for real property taxes. And so by mid-October, we'll have a really good idea of whether property tax collections are holding steady or not. Just to note that we talked with SStat just last week. We asked them for some data on appeals, property assessment appeals. And I guess I was somewhat surprised that assessment appeals actually are lagging a normal year. They're just slightly less than last year for the same time period, that is. We do not expect them to continue to lag, and the lag is not built into the property tax revenue estimates. So we do expect, especially commercial appeals, to pick up and to exceed, the norm for the year, and that is where most of the slight reduction in property taxes resides. Let's see. I would note that one of the things that's suppressing, in fact, the main thing actually that's suppressing the property tax revenues in the future is, of course, the current charter limit, which is an inflation limit. Revenues are limited to the rate of inflation. Inflation right now is running at 0.6%, I believe. And David Platt will correct me if I'm wrong later. But we expect inflation to be very low for a long time, and that will serve to suppress property taxes. We expect inflation to be lower than where we expected it to be in March. So with that, I'm just going to ask you if you have any questions.
Well, very much. And before we begin, I do want to very publicly thank Mr. Hagedorn for all of his service. And though it's tough to applaud when you're on a Zoom meeting, we certainly applaud you and all of your hard work and over these many years, and for all that you have done and will be doing for Montgomery County. And with that, I'm going to turn to the chair of the Government Operations Committee, Councilmember Navarro,
Thank you, Mr.
who has an applauding hands up in her corners.
Yeah, Mr. Hagedorn, what a surprise to hear this. I, on the one hand, am so happy for you, but on the other hand, for the county, wow, this is a great loss. As I've said to my colleagues in the past, I've had the pleasure of course, working with such an extraordinary team. Every single time we go to, we meet with our rating agencies and have to listen to the presentations and the answers, the very important, questions. This is an amazing team, A-list, and you play such a pivotal role in that, as you do in so many other ways. But I wish you all the best and want to thank you for everything that you have done, because there is no doubt that we have faced very difficult times here in this county. And this team has always stepped up to give us the best possible roadmap, which I think the fact that we have maintained our AAA bond rating even through those difficult times speaks volumes for the quality of this amazing team. So thank you. I wish you all the best, but definitely will be missing you quite a bit. I wanted to just on a kind of general, in a general sense, ask the following question. Obviously, when we see the similarity in terms of roughly the numbers from the recession that we faced in 2007, recognizing that this is a very different situation. I feel like we're literally day by day trying to figure out the impact of this pandemic as it relates to the fiscal challenges. But obviously during that recession, we had to take on and make decisions on a number of very important issues, right? So if I recall, that we did things like progressive furloughs, we restructured benefits, we rebased the school system. I mean, there was just so much that we were doing, including, of course, tons of savings plans. What can you tell us in terms of what you're seeing right now? And I understand it's a preliminary assessment because things are still, kind of up in the air, and this is so different. But what can you say regarding those additional items? Do you think that where we are right now with this savings plan, waiting to see how other things are going to come in terms of other revenue and things like that we're pretty good? Or have you started to have conversations about, whoa, are we going to have to now begin to think of additional items again, such as what we did in 2007 to roughly 2011? Can you give us any sense of those conversations?
Well, I can, yes, and I'll defer to Rich for most of this, Rich Madalino, the budget director, but we're talking very actively. We did speak with the rating agencies a couple weeks ago. We got our ratings for our GO bond sale coming up on Thursday this week. Again, as you noted, we've maintained our AAA ratings again for this go round. All of the rating agencies asked us this question, and we shared with them all the things that have been done in the past, especially during the Great Recession. And they are definitely options to consider, if not to use all of them. I think we're going to know a lot better, especially on the property tax side, which is 40% of the budget, in around the middle of October. September 30th is the deadline for the first payment for property taxes, real property taxes. It's actually the only deadline for commercial real property taxes and property taxes for residential properties that are not people's homes, not principal residence, not owner occupied, but rental residential properties. They're all due on September 30th. So once we have those in around the middle of October, the second part of October, we will have a good idea of what our collection ratio is compared to the previous years. And we'll know whether people are able to pay their property taxes or not. We actually are very closely following calls into 311 because people call into 311 all the time and say, "Hey, I can't pay my taxes." Not a lot of people necessarily, but it happens frequently. We do have 1 million+ residents in Montgomery County, so it happens on an almost daily basis. So we're actively following those calls to see how many there are, to give you advance warning on whether there are any other issues out there. By the way, not so far, but tax bills just went out. We mail them over about a 10-day period, so that 311 isn't overwhelmed on one day with everybody getting their tax bill on the same day. So the last of the tax bills would have gone out Friday or Friday of last week, actually. And so there hasn't been a huge number of calls from people saying that they are not able to pay their taxes at the end of September quite yet. But again, we're following that very closely, along with revenues and any other indicators that tell us things are changing, getting better, getting worse. And we'll be working with your staff and with ONB all the way through this, however long it takes, to make sure that we have a good idea of what is going on, and from that, hopefully, we can figure out what is going to happen.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Medellino, anything you'd like to add regarding this piece?
Sure. Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro. So, as you know, with the savings plan and the initial communication that we sent over a few weeks ago announcing our intent to move forward with the savings plan, the county executive asked all agencies to submit 6% reductions totaling at least 6% of their general fund tax-supported budget. He decided for certain departments not to move forward with that large of a cut, in particular Health and Human Services, because how important they are to the response, whether the health care response or the social services response to our community, hoping that the U.S. Senate will take action to provide a greater assistance to state and local governments. So we do have a list of other reductions that were submitted by all the departments that we would go back to if need be. There's hope that the Senate will move forward with a package that will include additional relief for state and local governments. They go on recess at the end of the month, pretty much the same time frame that you go on recess. So our hope was to figure out what they do, revise whatever numbers we have, and then have something waiting for you when you come back after Labor Day to review on the savings side. We did not press MCPS to put forward a savings plan at this point, recognizing they had to figure out what they're going to do in the fall and then figure out what they need to spend money on with the program that they're going to be offering. So we have to wait to see what the school system is going to provide in any sort of reductions on both the operating and capital side. If, again, because of their plans for the fall, maybe their construction schedule will be slightly different because of what facilities are open, closed, what they need. If they need additional space, they might hold on to buildings that they were otherwise going to start to renovate or replace. So they are the big question mark. I think we are on target to be able to meet the reduction in revenues for FY21. If that's all we're hit with, obviously there is a risk of the loss of state aid. As you all know, our biggest exposure is on the education side. The Board of Public Works cannot make reductions in constitutionally mandated expenditures. So the state cannot make a reduction to education funding unless and until the General Assembly approves of it. And as you all know, there's no plans for the General Assembly to reconvene until January. So we have some time to plan for that. As we said to the rating agencies, we are fortunate to be in a strong position with our reserves. So we have that as a backstop, and we promised and committed to your staff you to work more closely on revenues. I think this year you're going to get more revenue updates and expenditure updates than you've had in the past. We are, by the end of this week, every department has to submit to Emergency Management and Homeland Security their list of expenditures that they believe will be reimbursed by FEMA, so that we can put together our first giant request for reimbursement for the operating expenses that we've had with FEMA. We've already submitted our first tranche of funding for the personnel costs that we've had as a result of the response to the coronavirus. So certainly all of those dollars will help us better manage and inform the use of the Coronavirus Relief Fund, the CRF dollars.
Awesome. I really appreciate your feedback. The one thing I'll say, just speaking for myself, one of the guiding principles during the last recession, of course, was that we wanted to do everything possible to make sure that there would be no layoffs of our employees. And so as we're navigating this uncertain, and uncharted time, I, would also request that would be one of the guiding principles. We have relied so heavily on our employees, and they've done extraordinary work. And so at the same time that we hear, stories of people getting laid off and things of that nature, no matter what, I think that, we should follow that same principle that we did in the last recession, because it is so important to the quality of life of our county, but also to the stability of our workforce. So I appreciate the collaborative nature, both from Mr. Caballo as finance that plays such an important role, as well as you, Mr. Madalino, in communication with us, because it is so important. Thank you.
And I know preventing any sort of layoffs, reductions of force, any of those things is a priority for County Executive Eldridge, and thank you for bringing up that point, because as you know, we are going to be starting work on a government efficiency workforce in collaboration with our partners in McGeo, with the goal of eliminating at least 100 vacant positions across county government and rethinking some of the ways that we distribute personnel and responsibilities around the county government. So we are bringing together a 6-member work group and a short-term consultant who's done this kind of work in other jurisdictions to help us inform that process. And we will have something for you in September, either right when you get back or shortly thereafter, knock on wood, that will explain the progress that we've made on that front.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. So I'm still trying to sort of see how these pieces fit together here. We've got a near $200 million write-down in the current fiscal year, and it looks like projecting to $300 million next year. However, am I understanding correctly, we have not yet assumed any reduction of property tax revenue. So, or is there an assumption there about property tax revenue? I guess that'll go to Mike. You're going to have to.
I think if you go to if you look at page 2 of Mr. Smith's write-up, you'll see a chart that shows the different changes in revenues. And now I notice Mike is off mute. So
right, yeah. Sorry about that. I was still muted. Yeah, I mean, we're assuming the same collection factor, which is people still paying their property taxes at this point. We don't. Like I said earlier, we don't have a clear indication that property tax revenues are going to be hit any worse than what these estimates actually show at this point anyway. But the estimates actually do build in reductions in commercial assessments because of commercial appeals. The commercial appeals, again, haven't been made yet. They're a little bit behind the pace of previous years at this point in the calendar year. But again, we expect those to pick up, and those are actually reflected, and that is actually reflected in these property tax estimates.
Oh, okay. I mean, certainly we're not going to receive more property tax than we anticipated. It can only go down. So, I think we all need to expect that the property tax revenue is going to be lower than affected, and so there will be some reduction there. It seems to me, I don't quite get the match between $200 million FY21 write-down and $35 million savings plan, other than we're just hoping that the federal government, fills the gap.
We did submit a savings plan that provided more than $65 million worth of reductions between the operating budget and the capital budget. So it is more than 65 million. There were plenty of items that we chose not to move forward with because of their impact on the response that obviously we will come back to if there isn't more federal assistance. We haven't touched MCPS as of yet, to wait and give them space to figure out their fall programming. There is $87 million worth of contributions to the OPEB trust fund that, with the established policies the county has had over the last decade, we don't make the first distribution to OPEB until March 1st of any year anyway. And both the Leggett administration and continued into the Eldridge administration, the distribution policy has a series of guidelines as to how and when you make those distributions. And sitting here in July, it's hard to imagine we'll be in a place in March able to make those distributions. That would be an additional source of expenditure reduction in order to help us balance the budget in FY21, which is why, from just that perspective, in addition to the reserves that we have, I am comfortable with FY21 and our ability to handle FY21, again, without any negative impacts on our employees, layoffs, furloughs, those sorts of things. FY22 is an open question mark because of how strong the swoosh might be. Is it the Amazon swoosh or is it the Nike swoosh? So we'll have to wait and see what sort of recovery we have.
All right. Well, I was afraid you were going to say that. The backstop is really OPEB and the reserves, and you're anticipating that we won't fulfill our budgeted commitment to OPEB this year. And if this was the first time, that might be one thing, but unfortunately we have done this now 3 or 4 times in a row. And it's going from being an emergency measure to being a habit. And if that is, if the next 4 or 5 years we don't make our annual contributions for our retiree benefit funds, we're really loading up a big problem for the future. And I think we were all happy that the budget called for full contributions to OPEB, but worried that that wasn't something we were going to be able to keep. And it sounds like that is basically the fallback. To be realistic, I understand why it's a fallback, but I think we're called to be as aggressive as we can, not to have to rely upon that. And that's where I'm getting concerned. I mean, I would like to see an initiative that is looking at more than 100 positions. 100 positions is a very modest goal. We had to lose almost 1,000 positions during the Great Recession, as I recall.
One of the interesting challenges that the county has faced over the last several years between both administrations, while a lot of positions were reduced, they were simply backfilled with contractors. And so it's one of the difficult things that we're facing, especially in HHS. You're dependent upon a high number of contractors. And I know the county executive would rather us make sure we have a workforce of full-time benefited county employees who are motivated to do a better job than lower paid contractual workers. So,
sure. I think that really gets to the real challenge, is to figure out how to combine functions within our positions and essentially increase the productivity of the county workforce. That's the hard part. So that's kind of what the task force to identify positions to close out is all about. But you have to really be methodical about how you look across the whole government and combine those functions and improve the efficiency. And it has to be big. You have to really think big. But again, back to the initial point, like the combination of the capital budget and the operating budget savings plans, those are different. Like we don't have a savings plan before us that is seeking to close the revenue gap that we have. We're rolling the dice on a federal, bailout. Hopefully, our great Maryland delegation will bring that home. But the longer we wait to, make tough choices, the harder it's going to be. And
which is why if the Senate doesn't pass the package by the end of the month before the August recess for Congress, and with the election coming up, I think there's the general assumption if it's not done by the end of July, it's not going to get done. So we are ready to then reassess after we pass that milestone and have something additional ready and waiting for you when you finish your recess after Labor Day.
Okay, last comment I'll make. I mean, I think this is the situation that the county council was anticipating. Most of us anyway. When we took our stand on contractual increases. Next year is going to be far worse than this year, and the executive branch's response to our comment that we just can't afford these raises was to push them all into next year, essentially. And then they would, come back with another package negotiated next year, so you'd have a double package functionally next year. I think the council made the wise decision that we would not be able to afford millions of dollars for increases at this time, and I think that's clearly proving to be correct. So I want to thank my colleagues for those of us who supported that to do the right thing there. We would be really regretting, I think, simultaneously funding raises and talking about layoffs and position reduction. But generally, I want to say I think 100 employees is not, we need to do more than 100 positions on employees because these are going to be vacant positions. These are not occupied positions. We need to be looking at how to go bigger than that. That was an essential part of the county executive's platform, and we're looking to see that fulfilled. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you. I appreciate all the work that has gone into this. I think it's, scientific confirmation of what we have been discussing since the budget cycle. And I really appreciate the hard work of the executive staff. I know our council staff has been working hard as well. I think that this next is on the line. I know that the staffs have been working very collaboratively from the beginning. I'm not sure always the rhetoric meets the results of the economic and fiscal analysis, but I think that we have been on the same page in terms of what the expectations have been largely from the beginning, and I think that's really important. I would echo the comments that have been made of the prudent decisions and approach that the council took during the budget. I think that's put us in a better situation than we are here, but I would echo the point. I think that we fortunately aren't in a worse situation than we might have been based on what we have here in terms of what the expectations are for this fiscal year, and even worse for next fiscal year, as we've been discussing for several months. But there is more work that needs to be done, and I appreciate and share the goal and certainly the interest in the federal government stepping up and doing what we believe their job is during this public health and economic crisis. But hope is not a fiscal strategy, and so we have to make sure that we are moving forward with the actions that are necessary and that the cuts reflect the needs. And I think all of us, including the council, need to understand the moment that we're in. I'm hoping that this exercise will help all of us to be more disciplined and to recognize that reality. I did have a question about the 100 vacancies and that process. I would share the view that that seems less than what will be required for the moment that we face with all of the challenges that we currently have from a fiscal standpoint. But we've heard about this efficiency task force. Is that what you were referring to, Mr. Madaleno? The efficiency task force is going to look at these 100 vacancies and determine whether or not they should be eliminated or not?
I was, and I think in every time I've responded to the question, I've tried to say at least 100 vacancies. I don't want to oversell what is possible over the next 2 months, but if we can find 200 vacancies to eliminate, we will do that. But we are trying to. I'll quote Dr. Gales: level set expectations for the what we can promise for the next 2 months and the work of this group, because we're trying to make sure we have something to give you in September.
I appreciate that. I totally understand the idea of level setting expectations, but I think we also need leadership from the county executive, and I think that they will find the vacancies that the county executive sets forth and requires. And so it's, some of it is about what is, I'm not sure if it's what's possible, but what is easy and, what is necessary. And I think we have to do what is fiscally necessary, and I hope that that will continue to be the effort. In terms of the 100 vacant positions, how does the 100 vacant positions compare to the number of positions that have been added over the last 2 fiscal years, the current fiscal year and the previous fiscal year?
Well, many of the positions we've added, I think I heard Councilmember Jawando refer to the school nurse situation, and we've tried to add school nurses. We are about to launch, and it's been delayed because of the overall health emergency, but we added dozens of positions associated with bringing the Flash bus line, the rapid transit system on Route 29. We have sought to add firefighter positions in order to reduce overtime expenditures. We sought to increase contractual conversions with the idea of eliminating more contractual positions to bring on full-time positions in HHS. We added hours in libraries. So, a lot of the positions that were added were for policy initiatives that I think, if not unanimously supported by the council, were overwhelmingly supported by the council to either meet the needs to get a new service up and running, which we've invested heavily in building the infrastructure for with Flash, to expand library hours, to make sure we have adequate school nurses. So if you want details about the positions that were added over the last 2 years, we can go through that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. What I think would be helpful, because I think this is an important exercise, as we discuss the vacancies and as they come over, I think they should be compared by both numbers and compensation, the total cost of the position to the number of positions added. I think that'd be helpful for the council and for the executive branch to really understand what we are talking about. I agree. I support, and I think the council supported, to your point, many of the things that you're talking about, but at a certain point we have to get out of hand and move into or. I mean, we're in a fiscal crisis here, and I think that the repeated emphasis that we have heard about, reforming county government and doing more with less, and working with the labor force to make these dramatic changes that will save taxpayers money and improve services, we haven't seen it yet. And I appreciate the fact that some of that work is beginning. I think the question is whether it will meet the magnitude of the moment that we currently are in and the challenges that we currently face. But I appreciate that what we have heard the interest is actually going to happen, because we now face a global pandemic and an economic crisis, and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue losses for the county, and so we're being forced into that position. But it would be good if we didn't just go back to what would have been good before the crisis, but if we actually go beyond what we had heard before, and meet this moment that we're in, and be prepared from a fiscal standpoint to meet our obligations, to support our priorities, and to make the tough decisions. Because ultimately, the numbers that we're talking about here are not going to be easy cuts and easy decisions where everybody's going to be happy with where things end up. Ultimately, this is the moment where executive leadership is desperately needed. And so that's what we're going to have to see. And that's going to mean that certain people, certain organizations, and certain groups are not going to be happy with the decisions. And that's the tough leadership I think that's required. And we're going to need the executive to hold the council accountable also, so that, because we all have interests and we all want to add programs and add resources to certain things that we care deeply about. But we definitely need that. I will close with a comment on OPEB. I know that Councilmember Reamer mentioned this. Councilmembers Navarro and Katz and I have talked a lot about this. I'm a little bit frustrated by the fact that the gap that Councilmember Reamer asked about is going to be backfilled, or the expectation that you have is that it's going to be backfilled by underfunding OPEB. Unfortunately, we weren't able to have the comprehensive conversation as the next step of what the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee had been working on with the executive branch because of the pandemic. And it seems disingenuous and a little bit challenging if, because that conversation was put off and some of the policy questions and decisions that we had to make, some of the dramatic calculation changes that have been made, that we would fall back into the same trap that we have been in for many years without that discussion taking place before that becomes the expectation. And so I would just ask you to hold off on that expectation until we can have that policy discussion in the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, as we have anticipated doing, and as unfortunately we have been pushed off from doing because of the unprecedented moment we are in. And also caution that not just be the fallback, because it's convenient. But as we talked about in a previous conversation about OPEB, every new employee that we bring on carries debt for the future, that a future budget is going to cost in order to pay for their health care. And that's okay, and that is part of what it means to work in county government, part of the commitment that we make. But it's not okay if we don't reflect that in the decision that we make and understand the fiscal reality of every position that we add and of every employee that we commit to, so that we don't undermine the commitments that we have made to them, and so that we don't inhibit future budgets that crowd out critical services for vulnerable residents because we didn't make the tough decisions today and kick the can down the road for tomorrow. So, I just hope that we can not base the expectation off of that before the Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee and the full council has a chance to weigh on this, because it is a big issue and is one of the three legs of the fiscal policy stool that the council has held itself to for years. That started with the last council. My two colleagues on the Government Operations Committee have been leaders in this, and continues into this council.
Which is why we have amongst the best funded OPEB trust funds in the country, certainly compared to our peer institutions, which are peer counties around the country, not just all counties, but sort of the big multi-service jurisdictions. The average remains in single digits, and where I believe we're over 40%. The state, which hasn't made a contribution to its trust fund since 2010 and remains funded at a roughly 2% level, is also a AAA bond rated jurisdiction. So there are reasons to understand that. Do we have a challenge in meeting this obligation? Sure. We have met that challenge better than almost every other jurisdiction in the country, especially jurisdictions that provide comprehensive retirement benefits for their employees. So
I appreciate that, and that's
Councilmember Reamer's question by pointing out these are some of the options we will have moving forward. That is a decision, since the first distribution isn't made until after March 1st. That is a decision that will not be made until the early part of calendar year 21.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would just point out the best way to not continue the leadership that we've had on OPEB is to underfund it from what our commitments are. And I just hope that before we make any decisions, as I noted before, that we have the conversation that we've all committed to in a coordinated and collaborative way so that we can make a prudent fiscal decision. And then once we make the decision, that we actually follow through on the commitments that we've made. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much. And first I want to start off with accolades, Director Madaleno. The way you've approached both, and from an education and culture perspective, working with Montgomery College as well as Montgomery County Public Schools and our libraries certainly is one in which is a model for how we should certainly move forward when it comes to trying to achieve cost savings. It really is something in which I just wanted to acknowledge that the collaborative approach and understanding the nuances that are there with what it is that everyone is trying to do in the midst of this pandemic is exactly what we want to see. And so I just wanted to say thank you to you and your staff for making that happen. If somebody can answer for me a question that I have regarding hazard pay. And I know that we as a county have certainly acknowledged the risk that our front-facing employees have in the midst of this COVID pandemic, and certainly want to ensure that we're recognizing that by putting forth additional dollars. But if someone could tell me how much we've paid out when it comes to hazard pay to this point.
So I would assume through the pay periods we've been through, that it would be in the neighborhood of $23 million. Chris, do you think I'm in the ballpark?
Yeah, that's about right.
And so thank you for that. And understanding that this is tied directly to the governor's state of emergency, are we adding that into our projections in terms of with regards to the savings plan gap in terms of us for the long haul? Understanding again that there's supposed to be a fall spike. I think the summer was supposed to be a time in which there was a lull. We certainly didn't see that. In fact, we see the opposite. We see spiking. And so if there certainly is supposed to be a fall spike that everyone has called for and asked for, the likelihood of the governor ending the state of emergency in the state becomes even more unlikely anytime soon. And so from a budgeting perspective, have we budgeted and factored that in terms of that additional expense throughout the remainder of the calendar year?
So just to reiterate, with the state of emergency, it has to be renewed every 30 days, right? So every, more or less at the end of every month, by chance, the governor has to reassess the state of emergency. We have growing optimism that almost a large portion of the amount of money that we have spent so far will be reimbursable by FEMA, which means 75% of that expenditure will come from FEMA. Certainly for things like police, fire, for the healthcare response, those sorts of things. I think we are feeling good about our opportunity. Of course, FEMA can always rip the rug from out underneath us. So we are hopeful that we will have a determination on that shortly, with that first big tranche that we sent over, and then we would send a lot more for reimbursement. That puts us in a very different position. For example, if we've spent $23 million and we get 15 million back from FEMA, then that gives us flexibility as far as how we make that how we determine the spending for hazard pay moving forward. If they say no, if they give us a blanket no, they give us very little, then I think we'd have to reassess with our labor partners how we move forward with recognizing their continued effort, recognizing their need to enter into dangerous situations potentially in the fall, if there is a second wave for us in the fall. So, and how we conserve dollars, which is, why moving forward, we may have hit a point with distributing money out of the CRF that we should start then marshaling holding as much as we possibly can in our pockets for use in the fall.
So, Director Madaleno, let me just say thank you. That is a very convoluted statement, and not in a negative way, but it certainly is one where there's so many factors that are involved that it's really difficult to project what the outcome is going to be. Who knows what this federal government is going to do? You've got the president going all across the board in terms of really upending our systems as a whole, and so from that perspective, there really is no assurance. And then you have the Senate, who tends to be very rogue in terms of just doing what they want to do, which gives us caution. And so I think that at the same time, as we're being optimistic, we need to make sure that we're gauging whether or not these things are actually going to come to fruition that might put us in an even more challenging fiscal situation. It seems as though you guys are thinking about that, and that's what's most important. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
I'm hoping the next few weeks will give us a lot of clarity.
Thank you. I see Dr. Gales has just gotten on the call. Dr. Gales, are you under any time frame today? Time crunch?
15.
Excuse me?
15.
12 to 12:15. Okay. So if I could remind my colleagues, we have two other speakers at this moment, Councilmember Glass and Councilmember Albernaz. And Mr. Madaleno, if you could be a little bit more succinct in your answers, please. I know you can't, right? But we'd appreciate that as well. So because obviously this is extremely important, as is hearing from Dr. Gales. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be succinct. I appreciate all the questions of my colleagues and the responses and all the work that everybody's doing. And as we're talking about, individual positions and savings and for lack of a better term, some of the creative accounting that's getting us to this point. This pandemic that we're in has shown us that we can modernize county government rather quickly. Efficiencies that have been able to be made in like policies like teleworking, quickly changing liquor laws, cutting red tape at DPS. These are all things that we've been able to do on a dime over the last 4 months. And so when we're talking about this first round of budget cuts, because the county executive has already said there might be more, and we're publicly acknowledging that. I just want to know what the long-term vision is in terms of modernizing the county government, which has been the county executive's, a cornerstone of his administration. And he's talked about how the county hasn't really changed or modernized in 20 years, and I've heard him make those comments. And so what are we doing long-term outside of these budget reductions to better utilize and modernize?
I'm trying to think of how to briefly respond to that question. I do believe on your calendar this week you're having a briefing by the new director of technology services. I don't know if I believe it's probably one of the committees. I know she's prepared to talk about some of the things that they've been doing to very quickly update their systems and services. And it's been interesting to have a crisis occur with new leadership. It shows, sometimes the chance to do out of the box thinking with DTS and DTS's assistance with some of the other departments. We're trying to keep track of all the different innovations that are occurring across different departments to see if they inform decisions that could help move other departments forward in the same sort of innovative way. So we are trying to think about how we institutionalize some of the lessons that we've learned during this unusual time.
Okay. The county executive, in making the statements about efficiency and modernization, were made way before this crisis.
Yes.
There was an acknowledgement that there are things that we can do better, and I accept your response that we can be even better informed about what to do better because of the last 4 months. But now is the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hope the internal team is really strategizing to figure out what that long-term plan is. Because of time, I will yield back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Albornoz, you were the last council member on this topic, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be less than 2 minutes. I very much want to associate myself with the comments of Councilmember Glass just now. We used to have a robust innovation program within county government some time ago, and I think it absolutely is appropriate to resurrect that strategy, because there is no question that we have moved light years in the last 4 months in the way that we think about our government operations, and we should really ride that wave. And if it requires a modest investment on the front end to get us significant savings on the back end, I think that would be a wise investment. And I also think that, we often hear the term, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And so I appreciate the measures that the executive branch has taken to date with the hiring freeze, the procurement freezes, and all of those steps that are low-hanging fruit that are fiscally responsible. But I think if you read the tea leaves, November is not looking good. If you look at commercial property owners, the messages that we're getting regarding tenants in those commercial office buildings who are expressing extreme hardship. We know that a number of small businesses will have struggled to reopen and are going to struggle to survive through the end of this year. And of course, we know the 120,000 plus and growing number of residents that have filed for unemployment. And so I think it's important in all of our rhetoric, the council as well, that we, as often as we can, indicate to key stakeholders and manage expectations, because we know the needs are growing through the roof. And I appreciate the efforts to hold the line specifically on HHS programs. That will be critical. But even that will be difficult, right? So I think making sure in all of our talking points and rhetoric that our stakeholders understand the unprecedented challenges that will be upon us is going to also be very important. So thank you, Mr. Madaleno. And finally, Mr. Hagedorn, I had the opportunity to serve with you in the previous administration in the executive branch. Your professionalism, your dedication is really top notch, and you will be significantly missed, sir. And you will have some big shoes to fill. And we appreciate your service to the county.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for those kind remarks from you and other council members. And it has always been a pleasure working with everybody over the many years. And it's a great county, and it's in good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we sincerely wish you the best. Be safe and be well.
I will.
Very good. And with that, thank you very much, Mr. Madaleno and Mr. Smith and everyone else on this topic. And we are moving on to the next topic, which is the County Council sitting as the Board of Health. We actually have two items on that agenda. One is an update on the COVID-19, and one is an introduction to the resolution to adopt Board of Health regulation requiring enhanced testing strategy for COVID-19, and the lead sponsors is the entire County Council. I'm going to ask Dr. Gales, and I understand he's under a time crunch, so I'm going to ask him if we can combine the two at the same time so that we can make certain that the introduction is certainly understand what we're doing, and any comments that you have on that as well. If you could do that for us, please. Thank you, Dr. Gales, for being with us. And I know Dr. Stoddard is somewhere on this list. He said, saw his name prior. So thank you very much, and we will try to keep your time commitment as their time commitment.
Sure. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, everyone, in terms of time. Good morning. And so part of our time crunches, we are standing up a pop-up test event at Silver Spring Civic Center today, where we hope to test somewhere between 800 and 1,000 1,000 individuals during that time period. And so we're working to get that moving forward today and making sure that it goes off without a hitch. So I will actually combine my comments. I'll try to be succinct to leave time for questions. But I did want to provide some data updates based upon our last conversation on Friday and some of the exchange and the proposal that we received over the weekend. For those watching at home, we did submit a testing strategy plan that builds on what we have been doing for a while now and adding new features and components that were driven by the surveillance and epidemiology data that we have at hand. And that was shared with council, and that has been released from my understanding. So I want to, if I'm successful in doing this, share my screen and be able to share some of these documents that I'm referring to. So the first document that I want to share is data that we've compiled that highlights the tests that have been done, particularly in those zip codes, the top 10 zip codes in terms of volume. Also breaking it down by looking at how percent test positivity has changed over time as our numbers have improved significantly across the county for all geographic areas as well as racial and ethnic categories. As we know, though, that we still have some work to do. So I want to preface this by saying that we have had overall, if you look at our data dashboard and you look at it in the context of other jurisdictions, our numbers have improved significantly overall. Our daily case counts are averaging well below 100 on a consistent basis. And that is significantly improved from about 6 weeks ago, where I think June 1st we had a 3-day average of 155. We now are seeing, we've had multiple days in the last week where we've not had any COVID-related fatalities. And I think these days, 1 is too many, but we're seeing 1 to 2 on a daily basis, which is significantly better from 40 and 45 where we were seeing over a month to 2 months ago. We know that even in spite of that, that we still have this 60 to 70 cases on a daily basis. And what we have been working to do is to have a deeper understanding of why, as we've significantly improved, and again, the improvements have been experienced by all of our geographic locations within the county and all of our racial and ethnic categories within the county. But why do we still have some persistent cases? And so that was the impetus behind sharing data with you all last week. And continuing the conversation to say, how do we address those potential social determinants that are impacting continued transmission in certain communities? And so with that in mind, I would like to, again, share my screen. Let's see, I'm going to go to test volumes first. All right, so we'll walk through this quickly. This is looking at test volumes and percent positives for COVID-19 in the higher volume zip codes. And I'm speaking on these because I know they were specifically called out in the proposal that you all are putting forward for testing. So when we look at test volume over time, this is inclusive of those high volume zip codes. Here's the zip code. You're looking at the number of tests that have been run in the zip codes by each month. This category shows the percent of the total tests that have been run by the county overall. And this is the percent of population within each of those zip codes that have been tested. These are all approximations and estimates based upon the surveillance data. And that shows that, with the exception of, and then this last category shows where these zip codes stand in terms of the top 10 number of cases. So with the exception of 20874, all of them have tested over 10% of their population, which is consistent with the governor's request that each jurisdiction test 10%. And it's important to note that as of this morning, we have tested 11.2% of our population, which is over approximately 114,000 folks, and conducted nearly 150,000 tests. And our test positivity overall is 4.2%, which is below the state average. And we have tested a higher percentage of our population than the state. But this gives you a sense of the test volumes across those high volumes zip codes and where they stand. And this is a graphical representation that shows you how testing has increased across the county, but in particular in these zip codes over time, from before April to June. And the preliminary estimates, if we go back to this chart, you approximate just based upon the first 10 days of July, all of these estimates, if you multiply it by 3 as an approximation, will show that we will have higher test volumes in July than we had the previous month for all of these respective zip codes. And it's important to note for this one zip code that is at 8.4%, it's in the Germantown area, I believe. We are ramping up our testing there and putting one of our trailers that we're receiving from CDC that's been signed off and should come within the next couple of days in that area as a testing hub to increase testing access there to get them to a higher percentage of the population tested. Now, when we look at the percent test positivity over time, from my understanding, this was also addressed in the resolution that you all have put forward. Now, certainly back in April and May, where we saw the majority of our cases happen, we saw that there were some significantly high test positive percentages during there across these zip codes. You can see that I think in some of them, there was even in 03, there was a test positivity of 86%. That has decreased significantly, and now based upon the July number so far, it's at 1.6%. And you can look across the board and see how these numbers were higher, and they've continued to trend down for all of these respective zip codes. And in the month so far of July, based upon the data we have, you can see that the test positivity rates have improved significantly. And as we've talked about before, the two factors that drive test positivity, your numerator is the number of cases that you have, and your denominator is the number of tests that have been run. So in this setting, we have both, we've addressed both issues. We have decreased the numerator, so we're seeing lower numbers of tests across the board, positive test results, in the setting of increased testing, and the denominator is increasing. So that is why you have seen a significant improvement in the test positivity rates across all of these zip codes. Again, when you look at the top 10 that are identified based upon these categories, you see significant improvements and significantly lower test positivity rates as time has moved forward. Now, again, there's a graphical representation of those high volume areas to show you how, yes, we did see some peaks of test positivity in April and May, and they have continued to trend downward to now that they are in the single digits, below 5%, which is actually the state average this morning is 4.8%, and actually most of those are below 3% as well. Now, I do actually want to pull this out. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because let me see if I can also check my other document here. Give me a second. So one of the other things that was specifically called out that I wanted to address is the notion of there being a test positivity rate in the Hispanic community of over 70%. That's not actually correct. The test positivity rate for, I'm actually going to share with you breakdowns for non-Hispanic white, non-Hispanic black, non-Hispanic Asian, and Hispanic based upon the categories that we have for the data that we receive for test data, both positive and negative samples in our surveillance system. And so the 73% that was referenced, as we discussed, does not relate to test positivity. So again, for folks watching at home, 73% test positivity would mean that 73% of anyone in the Hispanic community getting a test would come back positive. The data that I just showed and will show now shows that that's just not an adequate representation or an accurate representation of what that means. What 73% refers to is that the percentage when looking at the makeup of our COVID cases, that's the percentage during that time period that fall into that category. So in the month of June, 73% of the new cases were in the Hispanic community. And so it's about percentages. But when we look at the overall composition of COVID cases across the county from March to here, Hispanic residents, for the data that we do have, make up 37% of COVID cases. Non-Hispanic black make up 15%, non-Hispanic white make up 17%, and non-Hispanic Asian make up 3%. And when we look at test volume and test positivity, which is what is shown here in this chart, the first part looks at the overall numbers for the county for test volume as well as test positivity. And again, I want to emphasize that racial and ethnic data is missing in approximately 25 to 30% of the reports that we have, the surveillance data. So we're reporting and estimating based upon what we do have access to. And so I'll just walk you through this in point of comparison. So the first, the test volume here report represents both tests done, so positives and negatives. And then the test positivity, and for overall, I mean the entire count. For test positivity, that refers to the number of cases divided by the total tests run during that time period. The second set of data here for each racial and ethnic category refers to the test volume and test positivity specifically for those 10 highest caseload zip codes. And so when you look over time, and forgive me, I'm going to have to scroll up and down my screen here in terms of being able to showcase the numbers. For example, when you look at non-Hispanic white population, you can track the test volume. And I will say this, we are working on the test positivity for July. It's pending. We did calculate that. Dr. Liu was able to calculate that specifically for the Hispanic community since that was specifically called out in the resolution. So I wanted to make sure we had that point of comparison for you for July as that's discussed. But as you can see in this group, the test positivity rates did peak in April and have trended downward. When you go to non-Hispanic Black population, similarly, we did see higher test positivity rates early on, both overall as well as in those top 10 zip codes. They have trended downward, and in June, in fact, we speculate that in July they will continue to move down, but they had already shown, much like this group here, 1.8, 2.7, they had already shown significant improvements in test positivity from there to now. And the same thing for the non-Hispanic Asian community. We've seen a peak in terms of test positivities, and those numbers have trended downward across the board. And again, we predict that based upon that and based upon early estimates that those test positivities would be even lower for the month of July. And then when we look specifically at the Hispanic community, you can see similar rates. In fact, when we look at test volume, both for the county as well as those top 10 zip codes, we see higher volume of testing compared to any of the other categories, in fact, which contradicts the statement that there has been lower testing in that community. And again, we understand we need to increase testing. We're increasing testing strategically based upon this data, but I want to use that to level set the conversation and clear up some issues around the interpretations of data. And again, when we, scroll down here, we see that, yes, there were high test positivity rates, particularly in April and May. They have trended downward in June. There were decreases, which is consistent with what we previously said, not as high as in other areas. But based upon the preliminary data that we have from the first third of July, the test positivity rates have actually decreased even more significantly to 1.5%, approximately 1.5% for the county and 3.3% for those top 10 zip codes. So I say all that to say, and let me stop sharing my screen here, is that the data shows we have made significant improvements in numbers. And again, going back to my statement and sharing data previously, the goal is to say, how do we push forward and how do we move forward and how do we identify any other pockets of transmission within the community broadly? And how do we have a more sophisticated and deeper conversation about how, what's the impact of social determinants of health and other types of things such as housing security, housing situations, type of employment, access to medical care and access to health insurance and primary providers to be able to provide those follow-up services, because we know that they're not only going to be beneficial addressing addressing those is not only going to be beneficial in terms of improving COVID outcomes, but they're also going to be fundamental in our conversation as we continue to address the long-standing health disparities that have plagued our county and plagued many communities across the board in different conditions. Now, in order to move forward, you all have received our strategy around increasing testing. We have we're increasing the number of permanent sites available for folks to come in and test. That includes building on our existing sites, and that is already in the works. As I mentioned, we are working with CDC to bring in trailers. They've been approved. Everything's set up. One will be delivered to Dennis Avenue, hopefully this week, and the other to Lake Forest Mall in the Gaithersburg, Germantown area. Additionally, there was a previous conversation around ready responders. They are present. They were getting onboarded yesterday and today, and will be going out this week to resume testing on site and facilities. Our mobile test team continues to test at shelters and group homes throughout the county and supporting testing also at assisted living facilities. And we just this week, we actually have 8 pop-up test sites that have been introduced and scheduled, including one at Silver Spring Civic Center today, Tacoma Park again on Thursday. There will be a pop-up test site in Poolsville on July 18th. There will be a pop-up test at the East County Rec Center on the 21st. And I think the church is Oakdale Church in Olney on the 22nd. And then Goshen United Methodist Church on July 25th and April 1st. And in addition to that, we will be adding 4 of our Montgomery Cares clinics. Will be providing testing as well. We worked with them on that and putting that into place. And again, in addition to all of these, we continue to seek new partners to do pop-up testing, as well as identify other venues where we can extend testing opportunities, partnering with them, whether that is an episodic pop-up test event or something more long-term in terms of providing additional assistance and support. The last thing I would mention is we recognize we don't have all the answers. And part of that is we reached out to, as I've mentioned to you all before, partnering with Prince George's County and the state to get additional assistance from the CDC. They sent a team to support us last week, and they are meeting with, they've been able to participate in some of our pop-up testing events to explore how we can improve community outreach, removing barriers to testing and addressing any barriers that may enhance transmission for certain folks within the community. And they will actually be meeting with different community organizations to discuss strategies to continue to enhance the response so far and address the needs of the community. I will stop there, but happy to answer any questions. I don't know if Dr. Stoddard will present, or we'll just go to questions right away.
We're going to need to go to questions, Dr. Gales, because of your time frame, and I guess Dr. Stoddard is in the same. I did want to mention that Dr. Crowell is with us as well. I'm going to, because of the time, I'm going to ask my colleagues to keep it to 5 minutes. We're going to have to, because we're under a crunch here. But the first council member to speak is Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Gales. I appreciate the presentation, and appreciate, I think we all do, the executive branch's testing strategy that we received the other day. I think a lot of us need to have a written strategy to feel comfortable, to understand, to have a chance to suggest alternative approaches, to hold the executive branch accountable, which is, of course, our obligation. So it's a breakthrough for us, I think, to be able to have something written, and the goal of the resolution that we're also introducing is to formalize that so that the county council has a chance to approve something in the end. Just to talk process a minute, what I recommend we'll do here is try to harmonize what you've provided us with what the draft resolution says, and then next week we would approve something that everyone feels achieves what we want to achieve. And then we'll have that going forward. So I think it's a big step forward. I thank you. I do acknowledge, there was some misunderstanding about some of the data, as you explained, and that that last chart you showed that says that 70%, in June, 70% of people who were tested positive were Hispanic. The graph itself, or the chart itself, says percent tested positive, and I think I misunderstood it as test positivity, which is a different thing, and it creates a different problem, or points to a different problem, I should say. The underlying challenge, I think, is that we're succeeding with many parts of the community in driving down the virus. We still have a ways to go, I think, especially with our Hispanic community. So, a larger point stands, but we will fix that misunderstanding or misinterpretation in a resolution that we ultimately adopt. So for my colleagues, the things that have been, what you had before you was a draft. I know Councilmember Navarro, for example, has language that she would like to see reflected in what we ultimately pass. So, Councilmember Albernax and I work together to prepare this. We'll take the executive branch. We're going to have work to do over the coming days to kind of pull everything together and have everyone's input. I'll try to just very briefly say, first of all, I think we are a jurisdiction that overall is handling it better. Right? We are not Texas. We are not Florida. We did not turn our back and encourage denial of the virus and put our hands in the sand about how to handle it. And I think our shutdown orders and how we've handled it have been effective. And I think we have the results that speak to that. But at the same time, I think we're all worried that the exploding transmission outside of the county is going to boomerang back here. And there are dozens, if not hundreds, of Wuhans all around the country now, and it's going to find its way back. They're at the borders, it seems to me, and it may just be a matter of time. So what we want to do, and what we're hoping that we can now do through this process, is all be on the same page about the peak that we may confront and what kind of a system we want to have in place, when it potentially, if it does climb back up, and so, having real specifics about the testing and the tracing and the isolating, and trying to drive towards a 3% or lower positivity, I think is, what we understand as being an effective response. We have had some differences or frustrations, right? And I don't need to go into those necessarily at length, but we have asked in the past about testing, and there was an intention to have 10 to 20,000 county-provided tests per week, back in May, and we haven't reached that goal. Now the capacity is there. We still have a long way to go to meet that kind of goal, and a lot of it has to do with just the hours that testing facilities are open. Up until very recently, we had 20 hours of county-provided test administration, per week. I think many of us believe we could be exponentially larger in the amount of time and availability of testing, and get towards, need a test, get a test, walk in convenient locations all around the county with pop-ups going into hotspots with online scheduling. I'm glad we're finally getting online scheduling up this week. I think that is something I've personally talked to residents who were self-isolating, 10 seconds, and couldn't get an appointment because the phone system was down at HS. So we will, thank you. We'll be working in the coming days to bring everything together, and hopefully next week we'll be able to move forward with a new written plan that the public has seen and we're all on the same page about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
All right, I'm going to make this very quick. Dr. Gales, this is for you. Yesterday we had a question about our Montgomery College and universities at Shady Grove and their opening plans. Great discussion with Education and Culture Committee. One of the things we've heard is that when it comes to some of our independent schools here in Montgomery County, they've already released plans saying that they're going back to school full-fledged, full classes, the whole 9 yards. So what is the role that you play as our county health officer? What is the role that the county plays in terms of approval of plans, and what is the role that the state plays? And how do we ensure consistency amongst all of our institutions of learning throughout the county and making sure that we're not denying some who may want to have in-person learning that we know is better, but also, understanding the safety concerns and also not giving advantages to those who can afford to pay for school and somehow maybe have some additional advantages.
Sure. So part of the reason why I have to shift and pivot out is because I'll be speaking and meeting with the school board this afternoon to talk through those very same things. So I need to prepare for that. So to address your question, so I will say a special shout out to our county school system, as well as the officials at Montgomery College and the universities at Shady Grove. They have all been very proactive in terms of planning and thinking through from the very beginning what it looked like to have COVID in this setting, as well as planning for the future. They've reached out to us in a consultation mode at different levels to be able to say, hey, can we meet with your team to discuss the strategies that we're putting into place? Again, all of this is in the setting of assuming that we move as a state to be able to reopen. And so, I think, and for the folks at home, I received at this rate in the last week, I'm probably receiving 75 to 100 emails a day requesting not to open up schools and different things like that. The school systems have been charged with coming up with contingency plans. And that's what they're tasked to do, is to say, in a best case scenario, if things do open up and we get to a point based upon the surveillance information where we feel comfortable that that is a doable option, they've been tasked with coming up with plans to do that. And so that includes all of the three that you mentioned. I will say I haven't had as many conversations, actually, I haven't had any conversations with any of the independent schools to date. However, if you're listening and watching, let us know. We'd be happy to meet with you all to talk through your strategies as well, to make sure that everyone aligns on the same page. And the last component that you mentioned is that it will be, helpful to continue to get input from MSDE. I know that they have been, their representatives have been meeting with the health officers to talk through strategies in terms of how to work with the local school districts. And so I have no reason to believe that that will continue to be the case as we move closer to the beginning of the school year time.
Mr. President, I know that I'm under budget, so let me just very, very quickly hone in on that point, because I think that it will be important for us to ensure consistency. If it's not okay for Bethesda Elementary School, it shouldn't be okay for independent elementary school to do the same exact thing but do it differently, right? And so from that perspective, I just hope that guidance is across the board and we're holding everybody to the same level. But thank you, and thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. So a couple of items obviously before us. I appreciate the plan, the testing plan. I think as it's been stated, the regulation, this is just an introduction. I do have obviously an amendment and also some additional thoughts on making sure we're aligning what's included in the regulation to the way that we want to provide culturally appropriate services. So things like not specifically just mentioning fire stations, but perhaps leaving it a little bit more general, because there may be other sites that are a lot more accessible and or convenient and appropriate for particular communities. And so we'll work through those details, and I appreciate that. Also would appreciate that anytime we receive data, perhaps a little bit more of an explanation, because this was data that we received from you, Dr. Gills, and obviously people were very concerned because they were not quite understanding the nuances, but we saw definitely, and I was one of them who saw the comparison between all of our groups and realized that there was a pattern that was positive for every other group except for the Latino community. Regardless of the nuances, there is still that particular piece. And so we are, as my colleagues know, working on a template of a particular initiative for the Latino community, which I think we should also replicate in our Black community. One of the things that I know I have learned through this process is that there's been a lot of particular best practices and lessons learned, but somehow they have not been necessarily, in my opinion, done in a strategic way that builds a system. I also believe that this issue of the pandemic and the impact, that we have not seen the end of it yet. And so to the extent that we recognize that in Montgomery County we do have these distinct populations who will continue to be disproportionately affected, how fortunate are we that we have a lot of, not a human capital in terms of partners in the community, people within the county government, and a lot of assets that we can deploy to best address this. So not so much questions, but just stating that even though the data, as it was explained, is not what had been perhaps characterized out there, disproportionality still exists, and the feedback that we're getting from many in the community is that things are still pretty dire, especially in our immigrant and Latino community. So to that extent, again, we will be sharing. Councilmember Albornoz and I have been working very closely with all of you, with Dr. Kroll, with Dr. Gales, the Latino Health Initiative, many people, to come up with a particular proposal that I think should get us to a much better place and address what hopefully won't be another very difficult time as the pandemic kind of cycles into a second wave, coming in the fall. So that's really just my comment, and I look forward to working with all of you on this regulation as well as this particular template. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. So starting with the good news, as you indicated, Dr. Gales, we went from averaging at the height between 400 and 600 positive cases with a one-day high of 800 to now averaging 60 per day. And that is terrific news. And there is no question that there has been a lot of work by your team, the partnership between the council and the executive branch to get us to that point. But of those 60 or so positive cases that we are receiving, the fact remains that the significant overwhelming percentage of those 60 cases, still significantly down, are coming from the Latino and Hispanic community. And as you acknowledged in a conversation we had yesterday, that's a problem. And I think Dr. Crowell mentioned that all groups are going down. The concern is that the Hispanic community is not going down fast enough or nearly as fast as some of the other demographics. And so I also am concerned that that number doesn't fully represent what we are seeing on the ground. And there are unfortunately many families who have felt uncomfortable accessing government services and programs, in large part because of concerns over immigration status. And I have spoken to constituents who have run into this challenge. And so I very much appreciate partnering with Councilmember Navarro and the Latino Health Initiative, and appreciate conversations that she and I had with the county executive, where the county executive acknowledged that we need a more strategic and nuanced approach to fully address the holistic and unique needs and the challenges that are presented when working with that community. And so we have done a good job, but it's not mission accomplished. And there is still a lot more work that needs to be done. And my concern is that a lot of these folks work within the service industry, have continued to work throughout the pandemic, continue to have challenges of not being able to socially isolate because of their living arrangements within their communities. And as we've seen the spike in other jurisdictions, and let's not be naive, those people that are in Texas and Florida and Arizona and California will be traveling. And so we all have to brace ourselves for the possibility that because of the lack of a federal response, we are going to find ourselves right back where we started. And so I appreciate the clarification of the rhetoric, which is appropriate, but it does not dissolve the fact that we still have a problem on our hands that has to be holistically addressed. And I know we are going to work closely together to make sure that we achieve that goal, because we all have the same goal, and that's ensuring the public health of our entire community. And I know how hard we've worked up until now. So you will hear more information in the near future about this specific plan. And to Councilmember Navarro's point, this is a template that I think can be replicated in other communities to expand the reach And I do very much understand the concern with being so prescriptive in the location of potential test sites in our draft plan, and completely agree that we need to be a little bit more flexible and nimble, and we will make those adjustments moving forward. But I think all of the general points remain important, and that we still have a lot of work to do. But I appreciate this briefing and all the other ones we've received to date.
Could just add one thing, Council President Pass. Thank you for the comments, Councilmember Alderman, and you underscored that that's again why we presented the data is to say we've got more work to do.
Your audio was not as clear as it should be.
Can you hear me now?
It's better, but not great.
Okay. I'll try to enunciate and talk louder. So the points that you mentioned are important because, again, from a health perspective, that's why we reached out to say, hey, everybody, yes, we've made this move, but we still have cases. And not only that, one thing to emphasize that I didn't talk about, which is one of the things that we brought up in May, was the disproportionate outcomes in terms of COVID-related fatalities impacting the Black community. That persists, and what we talked about then holds true in this situation now. You know, the factors that are predisposing certain groups to having worse outcomes are related to social determinants of health, which we're talking about now. And I think it's important not to miss that. And I think, yes, there are, and this is just my opinion from public health, that there are opportunities to use templates to have those conversations, recognizing that there are nuances within different communities, but there's a lot of shared space too. And so when we're looking at the disparities in COVID, you know, I look back at our health status report, you know, there's significant disparities related to diabetes, heart disease, cancers, and those kinds of things, which perpetuate the disparities within COVID-related fatalities. And so I hope that is also addressed and not missed in the opportunity as we create specific plans and different outreach strategies to different communities, because what I see as a link from the 30,000-foot view from a population health perspective is these are all related to, as you mentioned, types of jobs people have, types of employment. Do I have sick leave? Can I telework? Can I afford to miss if I am sick? Do I have access to a provider to be able to get a test? Do I have health insurance? And so all of those factors that are part of this conversation remain a part of the conversation looking at health disparities overall.
I just want to respond to that really quickly. I couldn't agree more. We've made more progress in the last 3 months on telemedicine than we have in the last 13 years combined. And the pop-up sites, the hub model, all of these things we've been talking about for years. And as we come out of this, I really honestly believe we're going to come out of this stronger, specifically from a public health standpoint, because this has in many ways forced us to accelerate the strategies that we know we've had to implement. And I look very forward to working with you in the executive branch, particularly through the HHS committee, in moving that forward quickly. So thank you very much, Dr. Gales.
Thank you. And I did also want to mention about for the what we're talking about for the resolution. As much as people know where fire stations are located, and as much as if there would be a possibility that we could use a prominent building like a fire station, that certainly would be something we should look into, or that Dr. Gales and others should look into. But the reality is, in many cases, fire stations have a very limited parking lot and a very limited area else, even if not just for parking, but for other areas outside of the actual building. And they weren't built to be near mass transit. They were built to be near the areas that they were be serving. So I think we have to be careful on what we're discussing and how we do it. Obviously, the idea being that we want to have people be aware of where they need to be and on a continual basis. But I think we have to allow the experts to give us their best opinion on what they should be doing and where it should be done, but we need to be doing it quickly. And with that, Dr. Stoddard, I'm going to ask you and Dr. Crow to give us an update as well, but we only have, by your own time frame here, 15 to 30 minutes. So please keep that in mind.
Dr. Stoddard, do you mind if I jump in quickly? Because what I have to say is specifically related to the planning and to the testing pieces of this, and I think I can be done in a matter of a couple of minutes with this, if that's okay.
By all means, go ahead, Ray.
Thank you, sir. So just a couple of things, folks. One is that thank you for the time yesterday to have a chance to walk through this data to clarify the perceptions around the information. Dr. Gales has done a good job of walking back through that today, and hopefully our public and the folks who are listening in will have a better appreciation for where we stand in the county and the progress that we have made. I think we've sent over a draft of the plan to you all, for review and for comment. And as I look at the resolution that you all are proposing today, I want to underscore, to echo, I think, the sentiments that Councilmember Navarro and Council President Katz have echoed around the prescriptiveness and not necessarily being overly prescriptive about locations and sites, but emphasizing the issue of getting sites and testing into people and in places where it's needed. I think that's an appropriate way to go, I think. What I believe is, as we look at what you finally come to a resolution, is that most of the elements that you've asked for will be represented in the plan that we have submitted, and we can tweak and make adjustments on that. The other thing is that I'm aware of, given the numbers, that there is some effort to come up with a template, as Councilmember Navarro and Albernas have described. We've not seen that. I've heard about it, and I've heard all kinds of things swirling around about it, but it would be a good thing to do to share that so that we can talk about it a little bit, so that we can figure out where it fits in the overall testing schema in the county and how it enhances that process and blends with it. So that I think it's very important that it not run in parallel and as a separate track, but that we do something that integrates that. So I think that's the request that I would make, is that if you all can send us pieces of that for Dr. Gales and myself and Dr. Stoddard to take a look at, that would be helpful as we go forward to try to figure out how we ramp up our testing processes and efforts in the county. So that's my couple of minutes for that. So I thank you, Councilmember Katz, and yield the balance of my time back to you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Jawando wanted to speak before Dr. Stoddard does. So Councilmember Jawando, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Dr. Gales, Dr. Stoddard, Dr. Crow, for all your work in the plans as submitted and clearing up some of those misinterpretations. Obviously, still of great concern, and I'm glad we're moving forward. Excited about the Silver Spring testing today. I've already been monitoring social media. It looks like it's going well so far. A question related to test turnaround time. I've been getting a lot of questions. That's obviously nationally a huge issue. I heard horrible stories out of Arizona. It's taken like a month or something. Obviously here, it can be a week, depending on who you are, where you are. I've heard some reports out of CVS specifically of slow turnaround times. This is something I just wanted to know, what's the latest on that? What can we tell residents? How are we addressing it? How are we working on that?
Sure. So I think there are two layers to that conversation. So first, we're sorry that people are experiencing that again. And again, it's not us on the testing, it's on the lab capacity, because what's happened is the large private labs, originally months ago, there was a shortage of tests, so you couldn't get them in, and then there was capacity issues, and they built all of these different new regional centers to run and do lab analysis. And what's happened is we were coasting along, moving along fine, able to address capacity and get the test out. In the last 2 weeks, as these states have been hit with new cases, testing has increased significantly. So you've seen record cases in Florida, Texas, and California, 3 of our largest population centers. And so the volume of tests that are being run out of there has increased exponentially, even more so than the cases. And so right now, the private laboratories have been literally slammed in trying to meet the demand, which has caused the delay in the results getting back. And I think it's another inflection point in terms of, one, them needing to build up capacity even further from where we were. And I know that they worked very nimbly and quickly to address that when we had the first wave of that several months ago. So I feel hopeful that they'll be able to address it. Even we've encountered some issues with our local lab due some logistical things as well, and we've worked with them to address it to be able to get people get results quickly. Because the challenge is ultimately if you test and you don't get them for a while, it really does hamper the ability to do effective contact tracing. So, for example, if you were tested today and you get your result in 7 to 10 days, where have you been within that scope? And we just have to hope that folks are isolating at home or quarantining in that place. And it introduces an opportunity for us to reinforce that message of if you are getting tested, if you're symptomatic or you've had a high-risk exposure, to quarantine yourself and not go out during that time period to minimize risk of transmission. And so I say all that to say that, unfortunately, right now, I expect that the delays in testing will probably be with us for a number of days to come. But the hope is that the labs will be able to ramp up capacity to absorb the shock to the system that these larger states have provided.
Okay. And it's important for the millions that watching at home, literally, as I always say, to know that. One fine point on what Mr. Rice brought up, which I have to emphasize, the difference between parochial and independent schools and MCPS. And I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, that you intend to issue guidance for both that is exactly the same at some point.
Well, I think from the health perspective, I mean, I think, if consultant, we, be able to provide that. And I think that, working again with the state education system as well as the MDH, I think, we will work to be on the same page because consistency is important, particularly within this area, related to equity and all those other factors that may come into play as a result of the decisions moving forward. So as best as we can say, we will work closely to make sure that we're aligned. Now, certainly defaulting on the side of whatever strategies are safest for our students and our teachers.
Right. And if there are limits to your authority, the independent school, I need to, this is maybe not a question for you, but you can make a health order for the schools. And I just want to make sure we're 100% clear. There's not going to be a separate, it will be an order and it will be for all students in Montgomery County. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to chime in here because I think it's really important to me.
And I'm done. Thank you. But go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, and you're right at 5 minutes. Council Vice President Hucker, please.
Well, Earl was going to, could you just let Dr. Stoddard respond to that point?
Related to what Councilmember Kondo and previously were raised, I will, because I've heard Dr. Dale say this today. Elementary or school-age children are not going back to school in the short term. The numbers don't support that. The MCPS plan has it extending into October. I do not see a situation where MCPS is extending into October for bringing students back. And again, that's conditions permitting. And parochial schools are going back in August full-fledged. That's just not going to happen. And so if there's a parochial school out there planning to have 5 days of school, full classrooms in August, they should talk to us because that's probably not going to happen. I don't want to, I think that's the clear message we should get out there, and, I don't want there to be any ambiguity about it. Yeah, call us for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Hucker.
Thanks, gentlemen, for everything you're doing. Thanks to Gabe and Hans for your leadership on this plan. Dr. Gales, just before you go, can you just clarify, better coming from you than from me, for the Silver Spring site today, for the 8 pop-up sites, do you want people who have symptoms to get tested? Do you want people who believe they have been in contact with somebody with COVID to get tested, or do you want everyone to get tested?
Well, so the tests are open for everybody. So if someone needs a test, come do it. We're not going to turn folks away.
That's right. Anybody who wants a test can get a test.
So right? For folks who are symptomatic, we do request, you have one. Well, everyone's got to have one, face coverings, those kind of things. But let staff know so that extra precautions can be taken to address that, and mitigate any potential risk of transmission from person to person beyond what's already in place.
But to clarify, that's true of everyone. It's up to the individual, right? Anybody who wants to get a test should feel free to go get a test. And that's a good thing to do, and it helps everyone. Okay, yeah. Great. Yes. Thank you. I'm out.
Thank you. Dr. Stoddard, by your own time frame, you have at least 4 minutes. But go ahead.
I have a few things I want to highlight, and they actually stem from the conversation we had on Friday. We are doing targeted messaging using geo-targeting Facebook ads That's something, based on recommendations from council members, we're pursuing. Also working with Telemundo to do targeted Spanish TV advertising around particularly the clinic locations starting this week. I think ads are already running, and we're going to continue to do that. We are working, I know this was a conversation, this is not an HHS only issue, this is an entire executive branch and frankly community county-wide issue. So we are supporting Health and Human Services. We had a meeting to discuss, this expanding strategy, how many additional county employees will be needed, not just to do the testing itself, but also to support the call center where a lot of the test inquiries are coming in. So as we expand testing, we know that we need to expand the ability to respond to the inquiries coming from the public. We're working with public health to identify non-HHS staff to help support that effort in a much more expanded way. We're looking for probably in the area of 250 additional county employees, and or if we can't get that number from county employees, bringing in contract support to help them do that. So this is all surging in line with the strategy. We're supporting their effort with that logistical support, particularly as it relates to personnel. The only other thing I do want to highlight, we've talked a lot about other things, is we did get a letter today from the governor's office related to the enforcement of public health orders. I'm sure you will have seen it on his social media at this point. We're ahead of that. We're already doing all the things that he recommended that we be doing. We're partnering between alcohol beverage services, police department, county health and human services, and other inspection agencies to increase our ability to do inspections. We did have a couple locations that were shut down on Saturday night as it relates to physical distancing. We have another additional one that had a citation issued, and we had a handful of others where we just educated them. Our goal is, and I think it's really clear that we point out, the overwhelming majorities of businesses are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And we appreciate that, and we want to call them out as much as we identify that there are people who are not. And those willful, and I think the governor's words were, those willfully violating, we need to stop that, because that will be a source of potential disease spread. And so we're following exactly the same strategy that the governor has sent us a letter today to implement. And so just wanted to let you all get that update to you all. I'm happy to stop there.
Thank you very much. It's my understanding that Councilmember Albornoz has a motion for the introduction. No?
Yes. So I'd like to.
That look on your face, Gabe.
No, we further need to clarify, but we are going to move forward with the resolution, acknowledging that there's still works that needs to be done between now and the formal implementation at the next council session next Tuesday. But this will move the resolution forward so that we can engage in those conversations, address the issues that we talked about, and merge the two strategies.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Albornoz, seconded by Councilmember Rice, that this be introduced. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Dr. Gales, Dr. Stoddard, and Dr. Crowell for being with us. And we appreciate all your hard work and all your efforts. With that, we are actually going to go on recess until 1:30, where we would then come back to a active day. And so, but right now we are on recess. Thank you very much.